Good evening. Nice to see you all this evening.
It should have been on camera.
I do appreciate all the questions and good discussion we had at the last budget meeting. I think that we were able to cover a fair amount of topics. So we did end halfway through our special education department, and we'll proceed from that page, which is page 23 actually. But first, we did want to address a couple questions that were emailed to the administration. The first of which was the staffing analysis for special education, so the number of instructional hours by position. So I do have a handout for all of you. I think I want to pass this down. And as you know, we do conduct a staffing analysis in all of our departments, but this is specific to special education, and Meredith will actually summarize those actual positions. I will also note this is a summary. There's significant backup of the actual data of the services that roll up into each of those positions.
So the first sheet starts with teachers, so it identifies how many students are in each grade level. So if you start at the left-hand column, says grade level. The next column over is the number of students. You can see there's a total of 99 students, K-8. Total minutes per week of services required by a special education teacher. And you can see we totaled that, totaled it by hours per week, which works out roughly to 65.5 hours per teacher. Because some services are provided in small groups, we're able to accommodate that with the 9 teachers that we have. The next section down is the social work FTEs that are written into IEPs. So again, you start with minutes per week in that middle column and hours per week in the right-hand column, which comes out to 25 hours a week. Most of that is individual service time. There is some consult that's part of that. And I would add, again, this is working across both schools. And the other piece of the work, and Patrick, you were here one day when I was sitting with a student in the front lobby who was having a hard time. I was sitting with that student as the acting principal because the assistant principal was working with the student, the counselor was working with the student, the social workers were working with students, and that's not uncommon in both of our buildings. Brian can speak to that as well. But those are just the direct service hours, so that doesn't include the time that those individuals have to spend in meetings, writing goals, doing the follow-up work, documenting their service delivery time, and dealing with crisis situations which arise. And then on the back of your sheet is the analysis by the related services positions. Applied behavioral analysis is the BCBA, and again, those services include consult, direct individual work, and they can include group work, audiology, very small number, that's hearing-related services, occupational therapy. You can see we service a large number of students, and we're concerned that we probably are going to have to expand that for next year.
That's like speech occupational therapy that falls underneath
So
speech.
occupational therapy is fine motor. So it's handwriting and grasping. It can be Yep.
I should just read.
Physical therapy is the next one. That's large motor, so balance and walking and motor sequencing, and then speech language, which is the communication goals, and that includes social communication, particularly for students with autism.
This is also to help the kids access their academics and their curriculum.
Correct, all related services.
But like with the PT and stuff like that, they're going to assess the kids' ability to be able to access the playground and participate in their education. Same thing with OT, like a lot of that is like can also be encompassed in behavior management as well. So.
And then finally, the last category is vision, orientation, and mobility. So that's for students who have particular disability related to their vision that require support in, again, accessing the school happy to answer questions on any of those. Related service providers, again, they work across both buildings, which means that any child that they provide services to, they're on the team for. So that requires attending a lot of individual education plan meetings, goal writing for those. They're also responsible for the evaluations for those. And so their direct service delivery time is a little bit more limited in the week than, for example, a case manager who can do a few more hours. And all of these folks also have to have required lunch and time built into their schedule. And it's not as simple as, Patrick needs 20 minutes of speech, so I'm going to pull him from 9 to 9:20, and I'm going to take Christina from 9:20 to 9:50 because she needs 30 minutes, and then I'm going to pick up Michelle from 9:50 to 10:30. You have to potentially cross buildings. You're working around, the class has PE that doesn't end until 9:25, so I don't want to, if I take you out of PE 5 minutes early, that's not going to work out well for either of us, so I still have to give you your time. So again, while the number of minutes is precise in what we've given you, it's not able to be accomplished in just that number of minutes, and I'm happy to answer any questions about any of those.
We don't have any occupational therapists on staff right now, it's all
That
No,
is
we
correct.
have
It's
one.
contract.
We have
We have one in
No, we have one in-house and the rest are
one
contracted.
plus this amount to contract currently?
No, occupational therapy is only
Isn't there
contract.
one that's
We
working
do
in the
have one,
district,
'cause
there's
we
two
have-
that are,
No, they're in the same room.
oh, they're all
They share the
contracted?
same room.
Right, I know, but are they all contracted, all three of them?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm thinking of,
Angie Butler. No, and not Angie.
Special education.
No, 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 it's,
Yeah.
There's three of them.
the other two are contracted.
Right, two are contracted, I think one works for the district.
so the OT that's listed on
Blake.
page.
Blake works
that's
for the
what's up.
district, the other two are
Sorry,
contracted.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so she works for the district, but we have two contractors.
That work through Exeter Hospital, yes.
Okay, so
With the PT.
So by, okay, so the
And-
contracted number here, the contracted fee, that would be what we are currently paying for two contracted positions on top of,
It's
obviously,
for
whatever we're
a
using.
full-time contracted provider, so it's
Oh.
two people, but it's the equivalent of a
Split.
full-time
Okay.
position, yeah.
Okay.
How do the contracted positions work compared to like on staff that goes through like a private?
Yeah,
Company.
so in this particular case, we contracted Exeter Hospital, Miracle Farm Speech Therapy is another vendor I'm familiar with in our SAU. But you're finding someone, we only have this partial need, so we benefit from kind of sharing that resource with other districts that are also contracting for some of that person's time. So a person is fully employed by that third party, right, Exeter Hospital.
Yeah, we send
And then
them the
we-
fee to rent them.
And
Correct,
if
we rent them.
one of them ended up being out for whatever reason that ended up happening last year,
They
they're
will send
supply
somebody.
somebody, so the kids are
Correct.
still getting their services and not having to back service day, which creates a huge mess.
Like
Correct.
waiting to look like to hire out.
So, if we go to the BCBA then, the contracted fee is 50,000. For the current, that's on top of the BCBA that we have on staff.
Correct.
So we're looking to add a full-time BCBA to the,
Rather than have
rather
that
than
part
contract it.
Because we are
Because-
contracting right now.
What?
We are contracting right now.
Right, so so we would be replacing that with this, which would really be more of a $42,000 increase based on what you pay. Cause right now, if you're adding in, if we say we're adding a full-time BCBA, we use it as X total. But if we look at the contracted fee that we're currently paying for someone, if we subtract that from it, then it's really a $42,000 increase instead of, I mean, I know not,
It's a little more because you have to include benefits as well.
okay,
So you're correct, it's an offset.
Yeah,
an offset with what so we've already been paying that out.
correct.
Correct.
It's a much better deal than some of the private
Yeah, I mean, I think across the country, there's been a rise in the number of students identified with autism spectrum disorders who require some specific behavioral support services from board certified behavior analysts. Again, we've attempted to sort of do that, some school-wide intervention models. Those people do behavioral observations, they help with behavior plans, they're called called functional behavioral assessments, the observations they do. And really, 2 full days or 2 full-time people would be utilized
All the
easily. Yeah.
So, but even if we add them into the budget, because they're already being paid right now and they're already performing the services, we're still gonna have to bring contracted people in, correct? So at what point do we say, okay, we have enough staff, we don't need to bring any more people in, the staff that we have, we're all good to go, and that's it? Because I feel like that, the staff that we presently have, you're still telling us that there's not enough if we're still having to bring third party in.
So in this particular case, we're proposing, instead of contracting for the .4 BCBA, in
Yeah.
order to meet our student needs, to add that additional position that's in the proposed budget. It's hard for me to tell you when we ever have enough, because student needs change every year, and that's our job, is to forecast for what those needs are, and we have an obligation to meet the needs that are described in the IEP for students. So these minutes change over the course of the year, right? A student may be receiving speech services 3 times a week, but at the end of the year, maybe they only need it twice. Or another student may step from preschool into kindergarten. In preschool, they were getting an hour a week, but because they're gonna be here now for a full day, they may need it 5 hours a week. It really depends on the individual needs of the child.
So basically,
when we're looking at budget, there's an inflection point where, when you're looking at contracting professional services, it reaches a point where it's more cost effective and less expensive just to hire the person in-house. So that's there's always gonna be some contracted services for some of the, if we have, some partial needs here and there. But once it reaches a point where it makes more sense, it'll be a lot less expensive to just hire someone in-house. That's where we kind of, when we look at the services required, we determine whether it should be payroll or if we should just continue contracting.
So long story short, though, adding that other BCBA would be getting more bang for your buck, to be honest with you, because you're gonna have that option to have more hands-on, whereas this contracted service that we are currently providing for the X amount of money that's on here, they're only here X amount of hours per week, and they're through an agency, so those agencies are gonna add more money, correct me if I'm wrong on that, and they're gonna charge more, where the BCBA themselves, if you were to hire them for that set amount of money, you're gonna get more hours out of them.
yeah, but if they're only here for the amount of time they're being used,
But
we're not paying them, these prices, these salaries don't include insurance. Like I was gonna email you today and I didn't, because I had way too much going on. But these salaries should actually reflect what the insurance cost is per each employee, because that would give you a better picture. So for example, the OT that we have, if she has a family plan, we showed her at making $88,000 a year, but she could actually be making close to $175,000 a year. So when you look at that, and then you look at what the outside contracted price is, there's no way we're paying for that one contracted person $170,000 a year.
But is that money encompassed into
Right, so that's what I was referring when Christina was saying is like a $45,000 differential. It's actually higher because it's broken out by account, so the health insurance is in the health insurance account, but you have health insurance, you also have retirement contribution. The average, middle of the road teacher is about 120,000 all in with retirement and health insurance. But to your point, it could change depending on the actual person. It could be a single person, it could be a single plan, it could be a family plan.
But it's still, you still aren't, this is not reflecting per person, their insurance included, so.
That salary account is just the salary, it's
Right.
not the total
Oh, I know.
compensation.
But I think
That's my point.
if you look at the occupational therapy here though,
Yep.
we're proposing that occupational therapy, that one position remain contracted, because in this particular case, it is more cost effective, because it really is 2 part-time people that we bring in,
Yeah.
and that actually is more cost effective.
Well, I was
So-
actually using her for an example, but what I'm really referring to is the social worker positions,
On an hourly
and even the
basis,
BCABA position.
on an hourly basis, the contracted services are always gonna be more expensive, even with the benefits, even with the highest benefits. It's just a matter of how much do we need them.
So per service, right, we're getting paid per service. So if they're used, we're paying them per service, we're not paying them for the full 187 days with health insurance and longevity.
Yeah, if we don't need them full-time, that's why we have some of them as, you know, contracting out part-time,
Right.
so.
So I guess like my question is with the social worker, is it a want for the school or is it an absolute need? Because like when we look at budgets, it's like sometimes we have to save money somewhere because the budgets keep going up. So like there is a difference between the taxes between a want, and I get it, like we all want a lot of things.
Yep.
It's just like contract negotiations, you go kind of back and forth. Is this a want or is this an absolute bottom line need?
So I'm gonna let the principals weigh in on this, but I would say we need more than one person already, as demonstrated by the number of hours that are required. Again, that's just the direct service. That doesn't include their attendance at meetings, it doesn't include evaluations, it doesn't include the documentation that they have to do, it doesn't include some of the consultation that they have to do back with the teams, and it doesn't include any of the crisis management that they're currently involved in. So you tell me, Ryan, Colleen, how much you're utilizing those people in those times.
Are we referring to these or the social workers now?
We're just talking
Because I think there's a big difference.
Right.
These are actually,
I'm specifically talking social worker at this point.
okay, alright.
The amount of need, and it's not just in special, the amount of need that we have in with mental health, the resources in the community on top of the special ed. I would say that we're able to do it with two. I'm listening to other schools today. I came from a group of all schools that are working in the community school project, and we're all struggling with move-ins, with things that happen with emergencies. I think we probably way down the road need to get a collective understanding that there's probably going to be more need in this community. It just keeps growing, and it's not one here, but I could probably be 2.5 busy with two though. Where we make it. I think there are other things you don't see there, which are increases in attendance. Our social workers help remove the barriers that get all students to school. When I started, every single student in our school was truant. Maybe a couple. It was like 350 students were truant. Last year we reported 125, which is actually so significant that I can relate directly to the work that I do with the social worker. And that's getting all kids to school. She and I will hop in a car together and go get a kid to school, and that's regardless of what their social work. You know, and there are other people that pick stuff up. There are the school nurse is heavily involved with vision and dental and all that other stuff. There's so many things that we do so that kids can access their curriculum. And you know, we have some of the best possible people in the position too. They're working late. They're doing extra work. And so, you know, every kid in our school got a coat. That doesn't happen in every community. I've got our PTO is working with our social worker. I know we got boots and socks in my office. Any kid who comes to our school, no matter what they need, gets what they need, and that's something that we should be proud of. And it makes a difference. I mean, I got a kid who's hungry. I can go pull food out of the closet. You know, Seabrook is doing everything for our kids, and our parents are doing everything too. They're helping, but these positions in the air. The honest truth is we need it all. We need more intervention, we need more teachers, we need everything. So how do we get there?
I'm definitely on board with needing more teachers. And it's again, we don't want to be like the test scores and all that, but like we need more educational opportunities. And I mean, if you think that extra social worker is a need, then we can definitely take a look at that. It's just I'm telling you what taxpayers say. It's a lot of times they look at it and it looks like it makes the school more into a social program, and with the scores as they are, people are like, what are we getting for our money in education wise? And when we have a lot of kids that can't read, write, or do math, it's kind of a tough pill to swallow when we add more and more social work positions, which is why we're trying to be as diligent as we can when it comes. Like I said, that's like something I thought about the other day. It's like, is this an absolute want or an absolute need? And because I get both sides, and at some point we gotta cut something until the state figures out how to get more money into the schools.
I don't think we would propose to you a want versus a need. I think we're really diligent. I mean, about the people that we look at, and I think that if students are not in a good place in their life, if they're homeless, if they don't have food, if not here, I mean, the social worker for me, she works on the attendance team, we meet every week. And they're not able to aim to academics, because there's so many layers of what's happening with them, and I think as a school, we need to support both of that. I think our job is to support kids who can't get support, to support the family and the community. Like, this community has an unbelievable amount of resources. And that's one person who reaches out to those resources on behalf of families. And then we can say, okay, you're ready to learn now. You know, let's look at your math, let's look at your ELA, but
And with these
I
extra
think they
positions.
do a lot more than the community really realizes. Like, we meet every Thursday, we talk about every student who has an attendance issue. She'll call the family, she'll reach out to them. The nurses are phenomenal that we have here. They'll call and support, so.
I know the nurses are great, they call me every day. Caroline loves the nurse, she goes to visits every single day.
But, I mean, does it all really come to the fact that we're talking about test scores, which are absolutely a must, or important? They need to continue to go up. I mean, that's not, nobody's arguing that,
If we have
but I
this-
think we have to factor in just as much of what they're saying in this piece of it as we do with teachers. I'm not saying it, and
We haven't found, we
it's
haven't
not
had
an either
stitches.
or, it's an and together. That's what it has to be.
And I agree with that, and again, if we have a lot of support in place, we're gonna have to utilize all of this, and again, we gotta just get better as a whole to try to drive the education piece forward for all the students, for between special ed, regular ed, you know, kids that are over, you know, excelling, and if these are the pieces that you guys think that you absolutely need to get it, we're gonna need to see the work on the other end with the scores going up, with, you know, a better educational piece with, and I understand it's hard, it is, but, I appreciate everybody's point of view and being able to at least break it down, for me here.
So when Colleen said that she doesn't think that they would propose a warrant over a need, in all fairness to her, because this comment really has nothing to do with her, we're also proposing cutting the teacher and EA staff when we have test scores that are 70% below proficiency. Like, again, it's not caring about one group of students over another group of students, it's that we're proposing adding staff for one group of students, but we're proposing cutting staff for another group of students. If we're really all equal, then we would be proposing adding staff to assist in the classrooms with the teachers that, and back to what Matt said about, you know, as a professional, our professional opinion is that 18 students per class is a good sized class. Well, not really when you have 3 to 4 different levels of education in one class. We've already been over this, I'm not gonna repeat it. But again, we're looking to cut students when these teachers are trying to teach students on all different levels. 18 students in one class may not sound like it's a lot, but it is when when none of them are really passing. Like, to me, and then you say, well, the other schools, they have smaller classes and we're cutting them too. Okay, well, they're also 70% above proficiency level. So you're comparing apples with oranges. Because when we try to bring up why the other schools don't have social workers, you say they have different needs. Well, today, when I was going through the McKinney-Vento Act liaison list, come to find out, you guys want to add a $100,000 social worker into our budget. Meanwhile, the other 3 schools have listed on theirs the social worker that was funded by the Brook. That we didn't want, that we were outvoted on. So we're the ones that have a financial difficulty, according to you. We're the ones that are struggling financially as far as this community. But they get the free social worker, and we're asked to put a $100,000 social worker on our budget. I don't understand. That, to me, number one, the liaison list from last year had 3 people on it that haven't been into schools for 2 years. And then the one that was just listed recently has Annalise Dunn on there for Hampton Falls, Northampton, and Southampton. So they're getting her to cover their McKinney-Vento Act program for free, and we're being asked to put somebody on ours that is gonna make $93,000 a year plus health insurance, but we're the ones that are strapped financially. So when you see things like that, you know, and the other thing is the other schools don't have social workers, so you're telling me that none of them have any students in their school that comes to school and they're crying or they're upset or they're having a hard time or their parents are going through a problem. And then, I don't mean to jump all around, but Brian said we have students not only that are covered under special education that need social workers. Okay, so that's my next question. If we have students that are not covered under special education needing a social worker, we're not required to give them services then under special education. So if we're seeing other students that are not special education, then that social worker being under special education budget, they're utilizing special education funds, which, is that legal? Probably not. Or are we just not billing for it? That's taken away from special ed kids because that's money that is put aside for them. And if we have one social worker and we're needing another one, is it because we're seeing students that are not special education that we could get in touch with the parents and give them the opportunity with a referral to use their health insurance? So these are the things I'm talking about. I'm talking about that in regards to the conversation that took place before this meeting, it's not about a group of students. It's about that if you are a school board member and you don't just view meetings and you go through all this paperwork and you know a lot of stuff that other people don't know in respect to that conversation, there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that we know that you don't think we know. There's a lot of things in this packet that we see that the taxpayers don't see, and I'm referring to the conversation before this meeting, is that it's so easy to sit here and judge me or someone else to say, you know, you guys, and I probably would feel the same way, because you'd be more passionate if it was a situation. But when you have students that are having teachers taken away and their test scores are to the point where, and I know you got my email, that they can't even try out at a basketball team at Winnicott because they're not eligible, because they go into the school already so below the other schools. Not only not is it affecting their grades here when they go to Winnicott, but now they're having sports taken away from them. The Seabrook Recreation Department just had to put a high school basketball team in there because Seabrook Winnicott students and freshmen can't make the team because of their grades. So our taxpayers are now having to pay for a basketball team at the Recreation Department because our kids aren't making it eligible enough to get to Winnicott. It all ends up adding up. And it gets to the point where you look at the numbers and you're like, okay, that's great, you want to add a social worker, but I was just told that there was a social worker being used for kids that are not special ed. So maybe we don't need 2 social ed workers. Maybe we can survive with 1 and make those parents, because clearly the other schools must give outside referrals because they don't have social workers in their school. I think you all are getting what I'm saying, is that Seabrook, it's now turned into the community center. These meetings are turned into all about what we can do for the families to help them get to school. I understand all that, but once they get here, what are we doing for them? The test scores are reflecting, we don't need evidence that we need more teachers. I mean, it's cut and dry. But to come to me and say we want to cut EAs and cut a teacher, you've just lost me. Like, I'm racking my brain thinking, how can they expect me to add all these salaries when you want to cut a teacher? You want to bring up the grades, don't cut the teachers, add more teachers. Add more teachers, and you know what, I guarantee you, if you add more teachers, and you put more classes, and you break the students up to the same level as their peers, so that the teacher can focus on each one of them in the way that they deserve to be focused on, you're gonna see those test scores go up, and it doesn't take a master's degree to figure that out. And I'm going to school for social services, so let me make that clear. I have nothing against social services. I know there's probably people in this room that are probably their jaws dropping. But I'm going to school to help the kids in the court system in DCYF because I believe that that's the level they need to be helped at with a social worker. Because this is school. And if kids need OT, PT, speech, language, vision, all of that, I support that 195%. But as far as the social work part, I'm sorry, I don't. I'm sorry, I don't. We have guidance counselors, and I've heard they are very, very busy. So you guys can talk the rest of the meeting. Believe it or not, I'm done. Because I don't appreciate what happened before this meeting. Because I'm being judged on something that they know nothing about, number one. And number two, when I have to find out this weekend that our kids can't even play a sport because they're not even eligible because of the grades that they're getting, you know what? Seabrook needs to break out. We need to go. We need to be away from this. That's it. Because our kids are getting nowhere.
Alright.
So I would say we had two other data requests. One was about kids coming and going from the school, so we gave you that information. You have a large turnover on your percentage basis of students in a given year, averaging around 8%. So over the last 2.5 years, you had 138 new students and 141 withdrawals. So those are not the students entering kindergarten, right? Those are students coming and going, move in, move out. Those are move-ins and move-outs of the district. Those don't include 8th grade and kindergarten.
Gotcha.
Right. Transition to high school or
Like
transition to
natural progression of,
Which I think also can factor into test scores too. So we're looking at test scores from a very targeted idea of the lack of education that Seabrook's getting. But we also need to factor in the 138 students in the last 2 years that came into this school that may or may not have already been behind. Now that doesn't give us a pass. That doesn't say that we're doing just a bang up job and they're the only ones that are behind. But there are so many more factors to all of the things that we're talking about than just one thing. In my mind, it's not as simple as just removing a teacher. It's not as simple as adding a social worker. It's not as simple as, whatever other things that we want to talk about. But it has to all go together. And I would agree. I don't think we should eliminate a teacher. I don't think that would be a good move. I don't think that adding kids' numbers to the class sizes, I would agree with that. But I wouldn't say that I would easily think that it would be okay to just take a service because we don't see the need if administrators in the building are saying they see the need, they need it, and if anything, they would add more. So, I just want to make sure we're looking at things like it's not simple. And again, that doesn't give anybody a pass. We're all responsible, and we all want better test scores. We all want our kids to go to high school and be prepared and not be behind. But how do we get there? It's not as easy as just doing one thing. And
Well, it's sure not cutting a teacher.
I already said that, so I agree with you.
No, I know.
So,
But clearly, the proposed budget didn't agree.
which is what it is. If they're trying to cut money from somewhere and this is how they thought financially could work, I don't know. That's
Well, this
So I
is
would
what-
say, I think Matt prefaced this with saying,
This is
we want a
why
budget that taxpayers can support. And so we have to look at all the pieces, and we know that taxpayers aren't gonna support the original 10% increase that came to the table with everything on it that we might want. And so we as an administrative team worked hard to find places where we could make reductions, where we felt there would be the least impact to students and learning. And the budget we proposed to you is that budget. And the board's job then is to review that budget and make changes and proposals and make a decision on a bottom line that you feel is appropriate and that can be supported by taxpayers. This should be an amicable, supportive process. We're here to provide you with information and give you our recommendations, and at the end of the day, it's your job to present a budget to the community.
The community hears it, and then we vote on it and or make changes to it. So I propose that we move through some of these numbers, and then we have to make proposals of what we're going to accept and or deny.
Else we're not gonna get anywhere.
Yep. So page 24.
I think there's one other data
Oh,
request.
sorry, yeah, we got this afternoon a request for information on the McKinney-Vento eligible students, and right now we have 41 students at the elementary school and 23 students at the middle school, so 64 students, which is roughly about 10% right now of your student population. overall.
I asked also where they came from and how long they've been here and what grade they're in.
And we're not allowed to.
You're not giving me specifics, you're giving me just numbers.
Well, I can't tell you how long they've been eligible because that's not data we can track. Because they may have come to us eligible, they may have become eligible.
Well, if they're living in Seabrook, that would make them eligible. If they weren't living in Seabrook, then the eligibility would be for them to go to the school that they came from, correct?
No, the eligibility allows them to attend either their resident school or their, like,
The last
lack of
school
a
they
word,
were at.
right, either the last school they were at or the school in which they currently, in the district in which they currently reside. And that's really up to the parents' determination of what's in the best interest of their child.
So that, I'm just
Am I missing
trying to
something?
wrap my head around, sometimes this gets confusing for an old brain here. So if somebody lived in Seabrook, then became homeless,
Mhm.
they are qualified to stay in Seabrook.
Right.
If they
If
choose
they
to.
were in Hampton and became homeless, they can choose Hampton and or Seabrook,
Correct,
Why?
and the reverse
Or-
would also be true.
or any other school in the district, or just coming over to us.
It's either the community where you currently
That's
reside.
not what I was told before.
Okay.
Well, it
So-
is, and I would refer you back to the presentation that Mary gave a couple board meetings ago. But the law is, if you become homeless during the
Yeah.
school year, you can continue to attend school in the district where you are currently attending.
Yeah.
Called your, like, initial school,
Yeah.
right? Or you can attend school in the district where you moved to. That's the law.
Whether they live in a car or a tent
So they would have to-
or
but they have to-
transfer
with-
or
They have to move in and then essentially have Seabrook residency.
campground.
I guess my question is, who's gonna change the
Right, that is a
So the
good question.
federal law says that it's either,
Right,
depending
no, I
on
agree
which
with you.
district you attend, either district is responsible to provide that education,
Yeah.
doesn't matter under the law. Transportation is typically split between the district of residence and the district where they're attending, if they are choosing to attend outside of where they're currently living.
My question is because it's a federal law, is there federal reimbursement, like are we
Mhm.
getting?
You get a
So it's out of
very
our budget for it, huh?
You get very minuscule reimbursement, not dissimilar to special education.
Right.
You get a very little bit of money in Title I. We have a homeless set aside in Title I, that's a small amount of funds. And we get some competitive grant funding, that supports a little bit of transportation, but I would say it's a drop in the bucket.
Okay.
So where do we get to see a breakdown of what we get then? Because I wasn't aware that we
Well,
were getting funding for that.
We didn't pull that together this afternoon, but we can have that for you for Friday's meeting.
But ultimately, you're saying, doesn't, whatever the numbers are, they're not enough to cover what we're doing
Correct,
for any student.
for any
So-
district.
So again, if someone becomes homeless in Hampton, they move to Seabrook, whatever their situation is.
Or if they move in with family members in
they're
Seabrook, then they become
then
Seabrook.
they're down
They could, or they could be continuing to do
there.
it.
Yeah, I'm just trying to connect. Okay,
Alright, so now we can move into the budget, page 23. We've budgeted $564,848 for our educational associates in special education. As you recall, this does not include a cost of living adjustment or step. Those increases are rolled into the proposed warrant article for the Cesspit contract. Additionally, this account includes the reduction of 2 educational associates. That again is based on an analysis of our students' needs for their IEPs, so the number of number of services that they're required, whether it's one-to-one, a shared service. So it's based on our student need, we could reduce by 2. I'll also note that these are not actual people that will be losing their jobs. We do have vacancies.
they're
so
open, they're
they're
open
open
positions.
positions.
So I have a question about that. Were these the positions that were funded by ESSA funds? Any of them?
These are just operating budget
Okay,
positions.
so they're EAs.
They're
Yes.
they're EAs that were in the operating budget
Yep.
for this year that we do not need.
That we don't need, but they were vacant positions, right?
Yeah.
They're currently vacant.
Okay.
Same with the 6
4.
proposed, 4 for the.
There's 6 total.
4 and
Oh,
two.
So
6 total.
So, all right, so I'm
4
referring to the 2. The 2 that we had prior,
Yep.
they were funded by ESSA grants, but they were vacant.
we had, this year, they were funded by the operating budget. The prior year, we had it in ESSER, and we transitioned it to we had transitioned it, we
And because
budgeted for it.
And because they're open positions, those never clearly get paid out, and it gets rolled.
We don't
Yeah.
fill positions
Yeah.
if we don't have the need.
Exactly,
So-
okay.
Alright, so page 24 lists the actual individuals, where they are on their step. Page 25, we budgeted $61,053 for our special education administrative assistant salary. Page 26, we budgeted $178,539 for salaries other. So this is for our RBT salaries.
Yep, I have questions about this too.
So we currently, or we're proposing an additional RBT, so that represents an increase. Do you have some questions?
I do. So the proposed one, the transfer one RBT to the general fund, so we all know there was positions that were added into the union contract
Yep.
without them knowing. That administration gave the union permission to do that. And I'm confused if this one RBT, if she's being paid out of grant money, then how did that position get put into the union when technically it's not even in the budget?
Well, any position, whether it's grant funded or funded via the general fund, can be in part of a union. So, like if we have a teacher funded via IDA, it'd still be part of the union. Same thing for EAs or RBTs. So that was that actually wasn't the administration that put them into the
But they need the
into
permission of
the
the
union.
administration.
That was part of the bargaining
Right.
process when we bargained the TA.
Right, admin has to give
What's the
permission
difference
for them to
between
file
RBT and
the
BC?
Registered behaviors.
So-
They worked under the direction of a BCBA.
So my,
Hierarchy, okay.
we
Nice
have
thing.
them in the budget as
You mentioned
making,
there another good deal.
we have them in the budget of making this amount of money, but the contract that they were put into gives them a significant pay cut.
Yes.
Yep, and if that contract doesn't pass, they're now put into the union, they're gonna take an even bigger pay cut.
If the budget doesn't pass.
Right.
Yep.
So they're going from making $29 an hour to making $10 to $12 an hour.
It wouldn't be 10 to 12
Well,
dollars.
if
It would
the
be
contract doesn't pass.
if the contract doesn't pass, it'd be around 19, probably, depending on
So $10 an hour.
experience.
So-
Or a reduction of $10.
So, but their union, so the union negotiated
I
that
know.
in, correct? That was
Yeah.
something that
Yep.
So I-
CESPA, right?
Yeah.
Had the term there?
Yes.
They're the ones that wanted to include the BCBA and with all of the other communities, correct?
The RBTs,
RBT.
the RBTs, even though the RBTs didn't know,
No.
but anyway. My point is that, I think before we think about cutting any support staff, we might wanna take into effect that these RBTs, taking a huge pay cut, they're probably gonna walk if that happens.
So I think you saw the budget for it.
You do have the budget, but I'm just saying that these RBTs are certified to see these certain students, and if they leave, we don't have anyone to see those students, and then they're gonna be told we need to bring in outside sources. So just keep that in mind, that, yeah,
Yep, so if
That falls
anyone
on the
leaves,
hands of
we're
the
gonna have
voters to pass,
we're gonna have to hire.
They're the ones
I'm
that
not getting into
negotiate.
this with you. The RBTs are screwed, that's all I'm saying.
But that, we can't, that's not that's not unfortunately something that we can even control from this level. I mean, in negotiations, that can be discussed, but we don't have direct control over their.
Christina, I know more than you about this, so I don't wanna talk about this, cause I can't. I'm just telling you, we need to keep in mind that there may be 4 people that potentially leave,
They might have to get
That is a real concern.
and we'd
That's
have to have
something-
outside contracted people come in. So clearly that wasn't taken into consideration when this happened. It wasn't taken into consideration that these people that are certified, that are making a lot more money, that are handling the most difficult students, we're taking a lot of money away from them. And what are we gonna do if they decide to walk? We're gonna be paying, instead of somebody $29 an hour, we're gonna end up paying somebody $50 or $60 an hour to come in. So we're not, when we're sitting here trying to figure it all out, it's not always being thought about logically.
But that's, and I sat on the negotiation
I know,
committee,
I know.
and this is something that is a union
I know.
employee, like, we just negotiate in good faith and give them their numbers, so.
I know.
And that becomes the teacher, like, just like the teacher contract.
Yeah.
If we have to budget for it as far as this budget is concerned, and I think we all hope the EA thing passes because.
No, I think we need to budget for it because we're gonna need the money, because we're gonna be paying outside sources. I don't think you understand, I'm not saying cut these, I'm not saying that, I don't think you understand what I'm saying, but Matt does. Matt knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely a concern, we, you know, had these as non-union positions, that was, and that changed, right? So unfortunately, that might be a challenge. Alright, page 27, we budgeted $1,000 for workshop seminars for our special education staff. Page 28, we budgeted $179,813 for professional services. So this is the contracted services for an OT, physical therapist, some extended school year, so that's over the summer related services, as well as a teacher for the visually impaired and independent evaluations.
This might be a newbie question, but how does the RTI services, their response to intervention, play into any of this? This might be just because I don't understand the role delineation maybe, but how does that?
So they're not providing direct physical therapy.
Well, no, into the special ed.
ESY, visually impaired pieces are not any in this list. I would say to the extent that a key provider is working with a group in the kindergarten classroom, if they have capacity to include a group who may not be identified but maybe has been referred for a speech issue, they're trying to support that student as well. They're providing some consult and feedback to the teacher, they may be providing some consult and feedback to the family if the family got.
To then potentially pursue like the referral process and whatnot. Okay, that's fine.
Page 129, we've kept $1 in evaluations and testing to keep the account open. Page 30, we budgeted $30,000 for our legal account, so that would be for any legal fees for special education students. Page 31, we budgeted $1,690. This is for our copier lease payments. Page 32, we budgeted $510,768 for tuition. This is for our out-of-district placements. As you can see, there was a significant decrease. Again, this is based on our current student projected for next year.
Question on the rental and lease equipment, is there a different copiers and stuff that's used for special education versus, is this like?
Well, we have one contract, but it's just broken out by department, so you'll see one in.
Yeah, it's not like.
General.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we consolidate some stuff to,
Yeah, it's the same.
and you get a copier?
But the copiers are one of the things that we get some sort of relief on because we go in District 1, is that right?
So that's an area where we have an SAU-wide contract, so we were able to consolidate that and get approximately 30% reduction in costs when we went to that new contract. Page 33, we budgeted $2,500 for travel reimbursement for our special education staff. That's for conferences, workshops, our district placement visits. Page 34, we budgeted $3,500 for supplies in the special education department. That includes workbooks, visual motor and motor support, specialized instructional materials. Page 35, we budgeted $500 for books, print media for the special education department, including CPI training materials. Page 36, we budgeted $5,000 for special education equipment. Also notes, I mentioned this at the last budget meeting, but we'll note where accounts where we utilize IDEA funds to supplement, so you'll see that this account supplemented by IDEA funds,
Where do those come from again?
the IDEA grant.
This federal funding to offset special education costs, and it covers a small percentage.
Page 37, we budgeted $2,345 for dues and fees, so this is for our memberships and professional organizations. And that brings us to student activities. Page 39, budgeted $48,324 for, these are our stipended positions for extracurricular activities, so that's athletic and non-athletic groups and organizations. The maximum cost per the CBA, because all of these extracurricular stipends are included in the CBA, would be $53,324, but we did under budget it by $5,000, knowing that historically we don't have every single group and every single sport occur every year. And here's a list of them. Page 41, we've left $1 in speakers to keep the account open. We've been fortunate to have the PTO assist us in this account in the previous years. Page 42, we've budgeted.
And those are all the new numbers, correct, coming off of the new CBA?
For the extracurricular stipends, correct. Because those did, as part of the CBA, there was a percentage increase. So page 42 is admission. So this is for field trips. We're budgeting $10,000 because currently we are funding these via fundraising and donations, but really we would like to incrementally start budgeting a higher amount because this is really something that the school should be funding, not through private, fundraising and donations.
But anything through fundraising, donations and stuff, if we don't meet that at the end of the year, that gets rolled back into the.
We have in the past, we have come to the board and asked to fund a shortfall in the
Oh, I think I'm just talking about the opposite, like, I understand that we want to budget for it, so that the
if
school,
we don't
we're not gonna
utilize
stop,
it,
we're not
yes.
gonna stop fundraisers and PTO and
Yeah.
stuff, but if they end up raising
Absolutely.
enough money, this money goes back and then we redistribute it.
Right, so
at the end of the
if
year.
we don't use it, it would go into the unreserved fund balance, that would be returned to the offset tax
Yes.
So
assessor.
the challenge is, for example, the 8th grade trip to DC is about $1,000 per student, and that's cost prohibitive for a lot of families. And while they do a lot of fundraising, there are still families who may not choose to put their hand up and say, I need some financial support to do that, which means kids lose out, right, and being able to participate in that. And it has become much more commonplace in districts to actually fund that. If we believe in this trip, we believe it's important, we believe it's connected to the curriculum, this is an experience all kids should have, then we should be putting dollars forth to do that, so that every individual family isn't having to incur those costs.
Well, even $10,000 in the budget is not even,
Oh,
it's not even a small percentage of
No,
what the DC
we're
trip.
trying to just make a start, understanding that it's a difficult budget year, we just wanted to start that process.
It was, we did have students that couldn't go last year, right? That wasn't, I thought some students
last
that.
year was in DC, it was Boston,
No, and yeah,
but
wasn't-
yes, and we had students who didn't go to
Yeah.
6th grade ecology school this
Yeah.
year.
And that shouldn't be.
Well, sometimes I wonder if they
can
say they
fix
don't
that.
wanna go because they know they can't afford it, which is sad.
Yeah.
That's exactly the concern.
That's exactly what it is.
Yep. Page 43, we budgeted $6,015 for supplies, so this would be for the various athletic and non-athletic team supplies.
Jerseys on there.
Page 44, we budgeted $994 for equipment, so you'll see that includes field hockey sticks, some baseball, softball tees, and soccer corner flags.
And ice packs, that's That's for Caroline.
Page 45.
That is on there, right?
I think she has one in there with her name on
It
it.
is on there, that's
Do
what.
we need to
Caroline
increase
likes-
that,
That
line
one,
item?
That's his office with her name on it.
9,000.
Page 45, we budgeted $9,500 for dues and fees. So this is the various registration fees and membership fees for our various sports. That brings us to the summer program, page 47, we've left $1 in, summer program salaries, to keep the account open. So this is, we anticipate, or we're not anticipate, we are, planning to use Title I funds to fund our summer program. This is separate from the special education special summer program, which is ESY, that's in the special education department. This is for general education students. We had some really great success of the last 2 summers. We plan on continuing, but that's title funding. I will note that it'll probably at some point roll into the operating budget. Obviously it depends on year to year.
What would stop the Title I funding coming in for that?
So we receive a certain amount of Title I funding, and then on a year-to-year basis, we determine how we want to utilize
It's like
it.
they say this is the number.
So they don't dictate that how we use it,
They give you like the lump sum and then we divvy it
and
out.
then we determine how to
Whether
utilize
it
it.
be for salaries during the school year,
Right. So we're
extras,
using,
tutoring, those types of things.
right. Alright, so page 49, we're budgeting $171,870 for our 2 guidance counselor salaries.
So on that salary, the 99,753, it says plus 10 days. What is his salary without the 10 days? That's all right, making sure. Share on scale.
Bring that up. So that's a top step.
Master's plus
30, 1 second. That is $94,689.
What is it, 94?
94,689.
What's the 10 plus days for again?
5 days, usually about 5 days before school, 5 days after, to help do 504s, entry meetings, any summer work that we have, they also participate in some of the summer school programs we have, and then anything that might happen on our school vacation, so if they come over school vacation for, so 10 days goes really fast, really guidance counselor. All summer long, we're doing summer enrollments,
Looks like we have 50 new students, students coming and going, right, in any given year. That person played a role in welcoming the new child, reviewing their file, making sure they're placed appropriately, trying to gather information from the prior school, and sharing that information.
Most schools have their counselors now.
But again, they're working 187 days a year, and we're paying them $100,000, or $94,000 and providing health insurance.
So also note that there's a proposal to add the second
That's what-
5 days to the second
Yeah.
guidance counselor to align both. That was a mistake in prior years where that wasn't at the 10 days. So that's an extra $1,830.
And these positions are in the union, the teacher,
This is in the teachers' union.
the teachers
yes.
union. So this
Right, but that
is
was,
contracted, like this, if they work extra, this is how it's contracted to be.
So we're not required
oh,
per the contract to add the 5 or 10 days.
Right.
However, the amount, if we add
That's
days,
set.
the amount is
Because
constant.
they have a contracted
Daily.
maximum amount of days before they hit the.
So moving on to health, page 51, we're budgeting $145,272 for our two nurse salaries. Page 52, we have $1 budgeted for our nurse substitutes. As you can see, it's difficult to get nurse substitutes, so we're budgeting accordingly.
Where do you guys source your nurse substitutes from? Nurse.
There's like three that we have on the list, and the SAU means a list, and it's really tricky because most nurses are working per diem, and so you're really lucky if you find a day that lines up with an athlete. So Mr. Down, I usually do the nurse. I was a nurse last week for a day. Because we're the only ones that they'll need to as the administrator. So a lot of golf jobs.
So we have,
Weird question.
We don't wanna
As
get
far as like
close
the
enough.
nursing stuff goes, could you guys, can you fill that with EMTs, or does it have to be a certified nurse?
I mean,
If we were able to find a nurse, we'd
you're not
hire them, so
responsible
we're
for
just
medical
budgeting
control.
based on historical.
What is the need to potentially add another nurse? Is there a need in the school to hire out another nurse that could essentially, I feel like
If you
I
have
talk-
class nurses.
I talk to the nurses more than I talk to the teachers. Because my kids love the nurses, but I feel like the nurses are like,
Well, it'll go down.
they're like a war zone down there all the time. It's like they don't have a ton of time for lunch, they don't have a ton of time, and they are like as busy as anybody else in this building.
Mhm.
How hard would it be to add a
We got,
third nurse here that could essentially float between the two schools and help out?
We had that next year.
No, I'm not looking to potentially add this right now, I would definitely like or like a nurse's assistant's position. Is this something other schools have that we could potentially look at?
one of our other schools.
So there are schools that do that. Our high school by comparison has 2 nurses to service the student population of a little under 1,100. But our smaller elementary schools or K-8 schools also have a full-time nurse, right? So there's a full-time nurse in Northampton for graders, which is a little less than 300 nurse. So, I mean, there's variation. I would say you asked wants, you know,
Yeah.
needs or wants. We didn't identify that as a need.
The needs should go down significantly once your kids graduate.
Poor Caroline.
They are 100%, just like the dad, injury, accident prone.
Just keep in mind, the
Don't
nurses are doing notes at 5, 6 o'clock at night and on weekends.
As, you know, and we know that that's true for our teachers and our administrators and our,
We're not getting towns that get paid $5,700 for 10 days either.
We're gonna let you know when nurse stays, Patrick.
big old
A
vest.
little big bags, be good.
We've made an adjustment though that our school nurses now perform the contract, we get a lunch break and a which is new, that we're trying to listen to the nurses.
Yeah,
And
this
so
is big number.
we do that now, and that the last 2 nurses worked through it, and we're making sure that we're protecting our nurses, we're really working with staff to make sure that anything we can do that doesn't need to go through a nurse, stops in the classroom. 'Cause there are a lot of those kiddos who just use the nurse to check in.
They just love it.
Brian has done that in the fact.
It doesn't have the balls as a nurse assistant,
Alright, page 53, we budgeted $790 for employment exams, so any new hires are required to have an exam. Page 54, we budgeted $3,061 for our nurse supplies. So that would be for the, the cough drops and ice packs.
we have ice machines,
Third class kids.
but
I'm gonna have to provide some extra stuff.
Page 56, we budgeted $273,132 for our speech language pathologist salaries. That's 3 SLPs. Page 57, you have $1 in the EA salary account to keep the account open. That brings us to 59. We've left $1 in evaluations testing to keep the account open. Page 61, we budgeted $110,431 for our curriculum coordinator salary. Page 62, we budgeted $17,000 for tuition reimbursement, so that's for any of our staff who opt to take graduate courses per the teacher's contract. They can be reimbursed for a single 4-credit graduate course. Page 63, we budgeted $17,740 for testing, so this is for our various academic testing, NEWA, Acadians, Eureka, and next year we're going to start with PSATs.
Matt, is Lauren a constant? Is she union?
No, that's a non-union position. That's our curriculum
Yeah,
coordinator.
I know.
I just want to make sure everyone else.
Yeah.
Page 64, we budgeted $15,000 for workshops, seminars, so that's for our staff to attend various training, professional developments. This is an account that is heavily supplemented via Title IIA federal funds for PD.
Are these workshops all like mandatory, do all these teachers go to it?
So it's a combination of workshops that we provide and then workshops and seminars that they're contractually able to go to as well, but obviously with approval. Page 65, we budgeted $1,200 for our CESPA professional development. So our CESPA employees, our EAs, are able to also take part in PD. Unfortunately, they don't always take that opportunity. So we budget less than what the total possible liability is. Page 66, we budgeted $1,200 for travel, so that would be for staff to attend outside workshops and conferences. Page 67, we budgeted $600 for books, print, media, so that would be to purchase books and other educational materials as part of PD. That brings us to educational media. So this is our library. Page 69, we budgeted $196,240 for our 2 media specialist salaries.
They're union, right?
They are part of the teachers union, yes. Page 70, we budgeted $2,400 for our library supplies. Page 71, we budgeted $12,800 for books, print, media. So these are the actual books primarily that we purchase for the library. It also includes our electronic format, so e-books, audiobooks.
Matt, real quick, sorry.
Yes.
For the supplies for the library, where it says in the SES note about for future consideration, is that something that she wants us to consider for like the following year?
So my apologies. So for that's a future consideration. So obviously, like as you know, we took a hard look at every account, and that's an area that we would like to invest in, but it's when we're looking at needs and wants, that was more of a want,
Okay.
right? Or less of a need.
I think it'll be also if we can do that.
Alright, that brings us to the technology department. Page 73, we budgeted $97,531 for our computer teacher. Page 74, we budgeted $94,899 for our information technologist and computer technician. Now, note that we are proposing reducing the computer technician position to 50%.
Why?
Sorry.
So she would go part-time?
So that would go from a full-time to a part-time position. And again, that's where we took a hard look at all of our positions and accounts, and that's an area that we determined to
Well, we have an
reduce.
insane amount of technology in the school that we're preaching and that we're using. We do the NEWA testing, we do these state testings. I can't imagine one person for 2 or 1.5 persons for 2 buildings to be able to maintain all that. And if she's part-time, if I were her, I'd be going to find a job someplace else,
She
like,
probably will.
that's what happened with Sarah.
Again.
And I can't tell you that I would not have made it through last year as a long-term sub had it not been for Dan and Dawn. Like, there's no way with all the technology errors that we had in our classes. We didn't even use technology in our room. It was trying to shut the technology off.
So we're gonna keep a program to help with social emotional learning, but we're not gonna keep a computer technician. And what's the difference between, alright, so the salary we're cutting is we're cutting 26,664, is that what we're cutting?
So that's half of the 53.
Okay,
Which is the 26.
does
Does she
that
know
include her benefits?
Well, she does now.
No, it's just the salary. So there's,
So we're keeping an $8,000 program for social emotional learning in a classroom, but we're cutting a person for 2,600, 18, yeah, what did I say?
that's just the
Eight,
salary.
oh, I meant 18, sorry.
So there's also the
Oh, the benefits
retirement
too?
benefits on top of that.
So
That's,
now
that's
she's
ju- the 26,000 is just the
So we
salary.
knew that, yeah. And if you're part-time, you can't get benefits on
Is
it.
is
So how many
there,
hours is that?
is there an, like some sort
25.
of, I mean, I'm sure you looked into, and I'm sure Dan has feedback on how much Dawn was utilized throughout the year, and I'm assuming that that factors into your decision to make her a part-time?
Everybody
Or
else
make
gets
the
2%
position a part-time?
raises.
Yeah, I mean, we took a look at every position, you know, of course, we never wanna cut any position. Dan, I would love to have the extra, staffing, it's just, it's based on what we determined is the absolute need, and it's not ideal, but we feel that we can get the job done.
Okay, so how much of it this time, the people that are making this decision, spending the time, doing this technology stuff, being in the classroom and seeing what's going on and seeing where the need is? Like, are you taking data and statistics to back this stuff up? Because this is just mind-boggling to me, because we wanna give half our administration a 2.8% cost of living raise, but yet we're gonna cut a teacher, EAs, and a technology person. Like, that makes no sense to me whatsoever.
So I think I'm on the same mind frame, is that we're giving raises, but we're trying to save money in the budget by cutting people. So why did we not consider the fact that maybe this year, like the rest of the world, people don't get raises, and that we say, okay, well, next year, because of the economy, we can see what we can do, but this year we just can't do it. Versus taking somebody's whole half a position away, getting
Take that
rid of a
position away, give
teacher,
somebody else those responsibilities.
getting rid of an EA, oh yeah, and putting responsibilities on somebody else.
The EAs are not, they're like not.
Yeah, but there's 2 vacant positions, there's still a need for those positions.
But they
We're
haven't
just
been
wiping them
filled.
out.
They haven't been filled, so we've been sitting on this.
But the need for that doesn't go away, so other people are still,
I mean,
Making
we've heard
it
all day
work.
long the need doesn't go
So
away.
that is based on the need, the special education need for those 2 projections. I mean, Brian, maybe you can speak to the technology.
Yeah, so as a whole, we looked at the entire, you're seeing cuts in almost every department, trying to balance, trying to present a budget that's balanced. And so you're seeing in general ed, you're seeing movement in technology, you're seeing movement in facilities, and there are cuts across every department. We're trying to figure out what we can maintain. This is a new position. This position we were just able to get this full time, and with all the ESSER funds that came in, we got a huge overload of technology that came in.
exactly all the
and
performance.
it's been put in place, and it's in the field, and there's no good way to reduce staff. There's no happy way to reduce staff.
But why are we reducing staff and not looking at all the other things that we're putting in?
So the other thing is that these positions are not union, obviously, right? So if they were union, you do know that obviously the union would obviously need to get permission to remove this to part-time. And the union would also question the other employee given more responsibilities.
You don't need permission. to
Well,
do
it would be a
something.
change of working conditions.
No.
If you have 2 employees in the union full-time, and you wanna reduce to half of one, the union would need to give permission of that.
No,
No.
They wouldn't?
that's a management decision.
Yeah.
So then why did the nurse have to come to us for halftime, to go halftime. She was union,
Because it's a management decision,
right,
you're the management.
right, but I thought that the reason the nurse came to us was because it was something to do with the union, that, let me think back. The union was in support of it, but that we would have to approve it, is that what it was?
Correct,
Yep,
and you
so-
did not.
Is it just the way this union runs? I'm only asking because I know the town, the union has to give permission to take away a
In our
position.
collective bargaining agreement,
It's
management
management rights.
determines how many positions are gonna be set in the budget each year. And we have a process that we work through if there is a reduction in force, right,
Mhm.
that's the terminology, reduction in those positions. We have a process that we work through to determine which position
Mhm.
would be eliminated.
So what is the, S,
Or person, not position.
Similar to the proposal to
Yeah.
reduce the teaching position.
so what does this SAI-S4 mean?
That-
Next to system administrator.
So that's there's a staff, they're on a salary schedule, so
Yep.
that's, SA is, systems administrator 1.
So is
and
that,
step
That's
forward.
the
That's how long
code
they've been here?
for his step.
that's
It's
how
like
long?
their education level, like the level of education with each.
It's the number,
Does that
it's
apply
the
directly?
step.
It's like,
Oh,
like the 13.
So how many years of
plus
service?
tags type deal.
So how many years of service is that?
15.
For what? I mean, for the
Yeah, for this,
technician?
for Dan, how
It's a
many years of service is that?
Well, that's a step forward.
Yep. I mean, do it, yeah, Dan.
Dan?
Hey, well, I'm not gonna ask him because I'm,
How many years have you been here?
I went full-time in 2010.
yeah. You've been here 13 years.
Yeah.
Okay, no disrespect. He's been here 13 years and he makes $68,000 a year. And we're gonna cut a position in half and give him more responsibilities.
That makes no sense.
So again, this is, I mean, this is a relatively new full-time position. And
So why do we?
this is our recommendation, and you can absolutely decide if you want, if you feel that you'd like to put that position back in, you can absolutely do that. It's your decision. We are trying to make, again, as Meredith
I don't wanna-
said, we're trying to bring forth a budget that is fiscally responsible, that meets our needs, but can also pass at ballot, because if it doesn't,
Mhm.
then we're making much larger cuts.
We did a couple years ago,
So-
and when we had a default.
So there's, we took a look at every account, you can see across the board, we've made reductions. And unfortunately, some of the reductions include staffing.
So again, how do we justify raises if we're cutting people?
The non-union raises would not equate to those
That's
positions.
the principle though.
It's tough to not give our non-union staff a cost of living adjustment when the rate of inflation has been so significant the last couple of years. And, when you look at overall nationally, wage growth is 5%. So we have to be cognizant of being competitive too, because you don't give people cost of living adjustments, then you lose people.
I know employees at the town don't get cost adjustment if they're not, cost,
Cost of living adjustments?
no, they don't. No,
I think
Cost of living
we're
adjustments.
comparing it to two different things, like we can't compare the town to the school.
I'm just saying that I understand, because I understand there's people there that don't get cost of living adjustments and it makes them upset, that's all I'm saying.
I can understand that. And,
But I'm also not thinking about the person that's about to be cut part-time and somebody else to take on more work.
Those are all things, you're absolutely right, Kelly. These are all things that we have to take into consideration, and we made determinations based on what we thought was the least impact on our students and our staff. Alright, page 75, we budgeted $400 for workshops, seminars, so that's for our technology staff. Page 76, we budgeted $2,000 for repair and maintenance of our computers. So that's not just our computers, but our other technology equipment such as projectors, printers, our networking. Page 77, we budgeted $6,000 for supplies. That includes printer toner, computer and office accessories, headphones. Page 78, we budgeted $13,840 for information access fees, so that is our internet contract and phone. Page 79, we budgeted $84,818 for software licensing and support. So you'll see there's a number of software and subscriptions that we have. It's broken out by curriculum, technology, and administration. Page 81, we budgeted $40,700 for technology equipment. So this aligns with our technology plan and includes our replacement cycles. So that includes our Chromebooks, PCs for the smart boards, computer monitors, and replacement devices for staff. That brings us to page 83. We budgeted $108,260 for contracted services. So this was an increase. I had mentioned earlier when we went over the summary. This includes the Seabrook Adventure Zone being transitioned from ESSER back into the operating budget at $35,000.
I have a question about that.
Yep.
So I know that we have to provide transportation for students, meaning the McKinney-Vento Act. And I have looked at the invoices, and the amount of money we're spending on transportation is concerning because we're using a high-end limo company that provides bus transportation, but it's also a luxury limo company. Has anybody talked to SAS about possibly, isn't there a way, considering in the grant and with the contract with SAS, that there are funds that were paid towards registration, insurance, and the vans, but they're in the parking lot a lot, why are we not utilizing them when they have seatbelts? Yeah, for transporting, because we're literally paying, $18,000 for a month of transportation for 2 students when we have vans out there not moving, and they have seatbelts?
So, I'm not sure specifically what you're referring to, because this hasn't been raised, but I'm assuming you're talking about potentially some McKinney-Vento transportation.
Yeah.
I mean, we could potentially use SAS vans, but we would still have to hire someone to drive it and make sure they were insured and be paying them some sort of rate and making sure they're available 5 days a week and that they pass all of the
But didn't we
required
already do
training
that?
to be able to operate the vehicle.
Isn't Tasia doing that too? She's already doing that.
Not for us.
Yeah.
That's what she's learning from the part-time.
And she's coming here. Oh, she's working for the company and coming here to do the
She works for
transportation?
a different company. So, yeah.
Would we consider doing that, as I think is what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean,
So
we
yeah,
could
it's
consider that. I mean, I'm sure they would.
really it's
It'd be
transportation is a real challenge, and we've brainstormed a bunch of different possible solutions because it is so hard to find transportation. We've even talked about would it be more cost effective to purchase our own van and then find hire a driver. It's something that we're looking at all sorts of we look at different solutions. It's really hard to.
Just because we use our, I know that we have bus monitors that we use.
Yep.
Within the school, especially their EDs, and I know that's a whole different ballgame, but would that be something worth us putting our feelers out and asking other staff? Because I do know that some of them work second jobs for other things, for other reasons, where they could get a pupil transport license to utilize that. However, we would employ them to use those vans to go pick up the kids and make sure they're able to get to school.
Yeah, there are specific requirements if it is transporting to and from school, it has
Right.
to be signed as a bus, we have to take some additional steps, it wouldn't be just as simple as we're loading people into the.
No, I'm well aware of that, so like they have to go for like a pupil transport license, they have to be insured, but we have those vans that we already physically own the vehicles, or, I mean, payments on the vehicles. Right,
I mean, it's,
but though we pay the insurance.
We
and
pay, yeah, and the contractor says that we pay a portion.
Yeah,
we contribute $35,000 worth of
That's where that money
specific
comes
to
All of
their
their.
insurance for the whole program.
oh, okay.
So, like, it's technically their vans, we could try to work with them to see if we could utilize them or have some sort of agreement, but it's they own the vans.
Are we just
Might be some-
Depending on the distance of transport and what those needs are, like, they have those vans so that they can use them particularly for after-school programming. So it's not, I mean, you can't guarantee them that you have the van in the morning, the after-school run may be an hour each way, depending on what the transportation needs are. It's not
Okay.
I'm just thinking, because $18,000 for transporting of a month is a lot of money.
I'll look into that, I mean, I'm not familiar with that specific invoice, that
there's a lot
that
of them
seems
now.
high, that particular one.
Yeah, there's a lot now.
Well, I mean, I'll look into it, but it's, transportation is expensive, so it's,
I know, right?
I got a question for the school resource officer, so that, it comes out of the school budget, goes shifted back over to the police budget, or we just?
so that's a Seabrook Police Department employee, we pay Seabrook PD to contract the
To have him
services
be
for,
in-
and to be in the school during the school year.
And then they cover
We have a-
the
we have
rest of
a-
his salary. I
we have
got
an
his salary,
MOU.
$7,000.
That's it, like, we don't pay benefits or anything, that's paid through Seabrook PD.
Just when he's here in the.
Yep. Typically, it's a cost share when you're looking
Yeah.
at service.
Was that, was the increase in his, was that the dog, didn't we talk about the dog?
No, he wants the dog, but it never got approved, so
No, that's just the cost share.
that's another.
I know, what was up with that? Did the dog get denied? Because
I'm not saying anything, I don't know anything.
no, seriously, I was told by someone recently that the dog got denied,
It wasn't the
and
dog
By the
that
police
got denied, it was supervisor denied it.
The police department.
Chief.
they did?
Yes.
Yeah, we love
There.
them.
No, I'm just asking because I didn't know, someone asked me to ask.
Caroline
Additional
went
costs
through that. They weren't
incurred
paying
when
costs.
someone is
Mm.
handling a dog, is my understanding.
They have to pay for
Everything
like
needs a
rides,
stipend
home,
for all of your
stuff like
stuff.
that.
I would love a school dog.
Give them
Yeah,
a
it's
stipend
dog.
for that. You want it.
As of last month, the police chief was interested in talking about it again. I emailed Miles and I said, hey, you wanna talk about it again? He said yes.
So you just keep planting the seed.
I actually sent him an email, a text today about telling him how awesome he did, so maybe I'll say, by the way, we
Send
want that
another
dog.
one.
He's open to discuss it as of
Ugh, that sounds.
November
God,
4th. As of November 4th.
That's a fancy way
Okay.
to say no.
My kids have been
That's
asking
not
for
good.
dogs for like the last
But
3
I
years.
love the dog.
Keith's been asking me for a dog
Maple
for
when
the last
she
3
comes.
years.
Alright, page 85, we budgeted $30,980 for our district officer salary, so that's the school board members, our treasurer, clerk, moderator, and recording secretary. Page 86, we budgeted $8,000 for legal, so that's for legal services.
Is that legal services for the board, or is that legal services for, because there was another line.
Yeah,
for
so there
legal
was-
Services.
For special,
education has its own line.
so this is kind of general, general legal.
Is this like right to know requests?
If a
and
right to
things?
know request came in, if it needed legal work, that would
Okay.
go into this account.
Not at all.
Page 87, we budgeted $12,100 for audit, so that's for our 5-year contract with Pluzzick and Sanderson to conduct their outside financial audit on an annual basis. Page 88, we budgeted $1,750 for our annual meeting. That's primarily to print the ballots for voting day. Page 89, we budgeted $650 for postage, so that would be to send out, that'd be for mailings. Page 90, we budgeted $250 for advertising, so that's for vacant staff vacancies, so like not school spring. Page 91, we budgeted $3,900 for dues and fees, so that's for the New Hampshire School Boards Association membership and subscription. That's something that I encourage you, if you aren't already taking advantage of, you really, I definitely recommend it. There's some great resources from NHSBA. It's also very beneficial as far as we can get free legal advice from them. So typically we'll go to them first with a legal question. And we also get our policy templates through NHSBA. Page 92, we've budgeted $1,800 for other expenses. So this would be for like retirements, gifts, or flowers, bereavement, etc. That brings us to SAU services, page 94. We budgeted $657,680 for this is Seabrook's portion of the SAU budget. That's based on, there's a formula based on enrollments and property valuation.
How do we verify enrollment of students every year? How do we know the kids still live in Seabrook or live still in this area? Because I, as a parent, have not had to submit any information saying I still live in Seabrook.
So,
Yeah, so this topic came up last year, so we worked with legal counsel to create a residency affidavit. And so whenever there's a question with regards to whether somebody is still resident or not, I'll send a affidavit basically saying that I need you to re-verify your enrollment. And all new enrollments have to do it as well, and it basically says if you don't live here and we catch you not living here, there'll be financial repercussions, and that's brand new, so we just started that process.
Okay, I think I remember this in Power School too, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's verifying, and it started last year, and the rest of the SAU actually started using it as well.
How do we follow, like, do you guys follow up on it? Like, do you, like, if you have a suspicion or like?
Yeah, last year I went to a house that nobody lived in, and the water bill wasn't on. So we have some really, we have some people who are really good at looking into those things that we're concerned about. And so, it's not as easy as saying that license plate in Massachusetts. That's not that. There's a number of reasons why they're in Massachusetts.
Oh, absolutely.
It's more about if we have a suspicion that somebody's living in a neighborhood that's for elderly housing, like, there's no kids in that neighborhood. So there are definitely ways that we check in. But it is complicated when you bring in the McKinney-Vento and the homelessness piece, because people make assumptions about other people that they don't know. We have a lot of other details that we're not,
Then you're able to give out, no, I understand.
We get some words for families that are facing every day.
Well, I think there's a lot of towns, it's a small town, and a lot of people know a lot of stuff, and they know more than the other people are telling them.
but they should reach out.
Feel free to share.
Yeah, well, if anyone has any information, we'll follow up. Page 96, we budgeted $469,202 for our administration salaries, so that's for 2 principals and 2 assistant principals. Page 97, we budgeted $199,313 for our administrative assistants, so that's 4 administrative assistants. Page 98, we budgeted $3,000 for workshops and seminars. Page 99, we budgeted $1,800 for district-owned cell phones. Those are used actually in the facilities department. Page 100, we budgeted $1,600 for postage. So these are for mailings that are sent out by the schools back to the families primarily.
Can I add a question?
Yep.
So, the secretaries, the administration, the clerical secretaries,
Yep.
that's what they make?
Yes. Page 101, we budgeted $400 for travel, so that's mileage reimbursements. Page 102, we budgeted $2,200 for general office supplies. Page 103, we budgeted $5,411 for dues and fees, so that's for professional organizations and memberships. as well as storage fees. Page 105, we are into buildings, facilities. We budgeted $82,846 for our facilities manager. Page 106, we budgeted $36,117 for our facilities administrative assistant. Page 107, we budgeted $376,064 for our facilities staff salaries, so that includes our maintenance mechanic and our custodians. This includes the elimination of one part-time custodian, as well as the reduction in our summer hires, so that's seasonal work over the summer. Page 108, we budgeted $1,000 for our facilities substitute positions. Page 109, we budgeted $3,000 for overtime. That's oftentimes when there's snow events. Page 110, we budgeted $10,000 for consultants. So this is to conduct a space audit and needs assessment. We have found that we do have some space concerns, particularly when we're looking at how we service special education in the middle school side. There's some concerns on the elementary side, particularly with the kind of the second floor section. So what this would do is the consultant would come in, take a look at our entire facility and make recommendations on how to use the space, if there are any changes that are necessary. This consultant will also take a look at the courtyard. So we see the courtyard as a good opportunity to reduce the asphalt and maybe have some more green space or some other utility for the courtyard. So that would be also part of this work.
But isn't that where we're putting the basketball hoop?
Well, the basketball hoop is on the it's actually on some grass, but
Okay.
we're talking about like the main
The whole
the
okay,
asphalt.
okay.
So maybe have some grass area, like so.
Tables
I heard like turn it into almost like a playground that's like gonna be
Rather than-
dedicated to a middle
Rather
school.
than a courtyard that
Death
frankly
yard.
feels very industrial.
Yeah,
For lack of a better
100%.
term.
So we have ideas, but that's why we're bringing in a consultant to provide some guidance with that process.
I have a question on page 109. We're talking about overtime for facility staff. Overtime includes, not that I'm diminishing the fact that they don't do this, but I also noticed somewhere else in the budget, we have a contract for a snow removal company in addition to this. Why are we contracting out for a snow removal company? I know how the contracts work and I'm well aware, but why doesn't the town do it?
We've had that
I
discussion.
can give an answer on that. So the town is
Thank you, that's
responsible
fine.
for a lot of spaces, and if you don't, so when it snows, you gotta have somebody here to clear this out.
Oh
because-
yeah, no, I
because
get
it-
it's just a little, I
Yeah, because
understand that, I just,
if it's not contracted out, like this contract makes us the number one priority for the snow removal.
okay,
And the DPW doesn't have the trucks to
deal with,
do,
no, that's fine,
to
I
do
was
the,
just,
to do
I'm
the
thinking,
roads and, like the fire department and all the other, the police department.
Yep.
Yeah, I brought this, I literally brought up the same question last year.
okay,
We
thank you.
try to work as collaboratively as possible with the town, but in some cases they just don't have
And they're understaffed too anyways, so I
the
get that.
ability to, like trash removal, they used to provide for us, now, like we bring our trash to the dump, so.
And just with, I mean, and every year, like some years, the snow removal guys made out like a bandit. Like last year, it didn't snow, but the year that it dumped the record amount, they got screwed on their end, as they would call it. But
They are.
this contract, we would be shutting down school every other snowstorm if we had to rely on it. And I know for a fact that we do not want to.
Cause it's not just snow, it's also the ice is often sometimes worse than the snow.
100%.
That's, in New England, that's,
And the work that we do for snow removal is more the pathways and sidewalks.
And the
as
maintenance throughout the
opposed
day of our.
The snow removal, right, and the snow removal is just really the main driveways and the parking
and if it
lots.
starts snowing in the middle of the school, they're contracted to come.
Oh, absolutely.
So, I think he's asking a question.
Thank you.
Page 111, we budgeted $12,000 for our domestic water. Again, we pay the town of Seabrook. Page 112, we budgeted $5,900 for trash removal. Page 113, we budgeted $25,670 for fire safety protection. So the reason for this increase, so these are all the various required inspections. However, there's one addition here. You see air duct cleaning. It's about 7 lines down for $15,000. That's actually a multi-year cycle that we need to start. Ideally, we do it all at once, but it'd be $75,000. So we're breaking it up in sections, and that's really an air quality issue there, and efficiency. Page 114, we budgeted $60,550 for repair, maintenance, service. So these are our various, repairs for the school throughout the year. Page 115, we budgeted $45,356. This is for our property and liability insurance premium. Page 116, we budgeted $42,500 for our facility supplies. You'll see that's a pretty significant reduction. We tasked the facilities manager with seeing where we could potentially make cuts. So we took a deep look at those areas.
So I have a question, so
Yep.
last year for uniform purchase, shoe allowance, they had $3,000.
Yep.
So last year, when they had $3,000, they're not union, so what was,
So we're gonna skip a year for the uniform. I mean, if there's one, we put $500 in for anything that gets damaged, like the uniform, but
okay.
we're not gonna do a full
Like every other year
replacement.
replacement, is that what you're hoping?
Well, typically we do it every year, but we're skipping this year.
Okay,
I mean, they have uniforms, it's just they get worn out and it's facility staff, so.
Okay, and then for the floor scrubbers and buffers, what are we gonna do if the batteries run out? We have 0, so,
Well, if we were ever in a situation where we need something, we'll look at making the purchase. However, we do have a supply, so that's where we said, hey, like, what's our current inventory?
okay.
Do you think we can make it another year? And
Oh,
that's,
so they have inventory, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, they start, because I was just on a basketball games with Woody Fools.
Gotta have the
That's
basketball.
trust.
It can be interesting.
I gotta come
Do
to it.
trust me,
I already did the
Gotta do the rec one soon.
Page 117, we budgeted $97,684. This is for electricity. Page 118, we budgeted $64,000 for heating fuel, so that's primarily natural gas. Page 119, we have $1 to keep the account open for renovations.
Can you go back to the electricity one, which one's that?
Yep.
Isn't that down because we're in an agreement that we're selling something back to the,
So we're in a group net metering contract, so we're monetizing our tax credits.
we're selling those tax
But that's
credits?
coming in just as revenue, so that doesn't affect.
so this stays the same, but
Yeah.
we will see that in.
We will see a
coming back.
reduction, so that goes,
Okay.
gets taken off the tax rate, so we provide those estimated revenues to DRA, and they reduce it by that corresponding amount.
Gotcha.
And then if we receive more than what we're estimating, it goes into the unreserved fund balance.
Gotcha.
Alright, page 120, we've budgeted $15,500 for new furniture. This is primarily in the middle school. We've actually made some significant investments on the elementary side, and we've started on the middle school, but there's really a pretty large need, particularly when we're looking at individual desks/chairs where not all students can fit. It's just not ideal. Page 121, we budgeted $900 for equipment. That's for radio replacements. Page 122, we have $1 for training to keep the account open.
Alright, so can we go back to
Yep.
the 121? We did huge cuts there,
Yep.
So I think we're probably gonna ask, they have this stuff on hand already, or?
okay.
Alright, page 124, we budgeted $40,314. This is for that snow removal contract. Page 125, we budgeted $9,500 for grounds maintenance. So that's playground repairs, ropes course inspection, patching the pavement. Page 126, we budgeted $5,500 for supplies.
The contract field spraying, is that for bugs?
Oh my God, yes. I know, we're having some chickens and roosters out there doing a pretty
No,
good
I'm
job.
dead serious, because have you ever been at those baseball fields when they are sprayed? Like, you get eaten alive, so if they take away the contract, I'm dead serious, like, sometimes it's unbearable to even be down there during a game.
Is that bugs or is it like?
Yeah,
I believe,
Yeah.
great, I know.
Like, even with the spraying.
I'll have to verify that. I would guess that's for bug spraying, but
It's not
I'm not 100% sure.
$1,000.
Yeah, Jenny, you get your house sprayed,
Mm-hmm.
because it's unbearable. Yeah, that's the other thing, is it the tips?
Mm-hmm.
It's dangerous, get Lyme disease.
Alright, page 128, we budgeted $3,200 for vehicle expenses.
Lost 4 pounds in 2 months.
That brings us to transportation. Page 130, we budgeted $865,356 for our contract with First Students.
All right, I have a question for the transportation. So, bus drivers have reported that we have what did they say? A bus 1, a 10. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, can you say it, because they came to me too when I put it down, but I don't know the buses as well.
I think that they were bringing up a discussion about, like, I know there's been a shortage of bus drivers for starters, because I think you guys have had to collaborate a lot of buses recently, at least that's what my kids are telling me. But I didn't know if there were other buses, depending on what aspects of the town that they cover, if they would be able to collaborate them, depending on how many kids are on the bus. Is that something, and now, please bear with me, this is because I'm totally new and I don't understand how the transportation, like, aspect works and how our contract works with them, like if they're able to compile.
Well, typically, there's buses that are dedicated to the specific district. However, when there is a shortage, First Student can at any point kind of move drivers or buses around. Oftentimes, that's difficult because schools typically start and end at pretty much very close time.
Like
So you really can't combine routes within different towns.
No, not with different towns, I'm
But-
talking about within the buses that we have here that serve Seabrook, like if there's.
Consolidation.
Yeah, thank you.
But we review routes every year. They have mapping software that they use, and then principals review those routes, so we have a chance to look at that every year. Part of it is done by capacity on the buses and the number of children who are eligible for each of those areas. Part of it is about like travel time. So we look at all of those variables every
And how long the
year.
kids are like on the buses and
We
stuff like that.
try, we never want students on the bus for over an hour.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
So.
And the poor bus driver should.
So that's looked at every year. You know, in some of our districts that have had more declining enrollment, actually we had 2 districts that we removed a bus route for two other districts. We're not at that point yet at Seabrook, however, it's something that if the enrollment trends continue, that's probably something we're gonna address in future budget years.
So the bus to the recreation department, does that still just do the rec route, or does it just do students from here to the rec department?
I don't believe it does. The kids are on the bus today and they had
Depends, so it depends if you're a program kid or you're,
a late,
what do they call that?
The
You're
late
in a
bus.
program where you're just open gym.
Open gym, yeah.
And then we also log, so our office keeps a log of anytime the bus makes a change, so that when Matt calls over, it says how many buses did we use, we can actually tell you if something's been doubled up, when it's been doubled up, cause I feel like that helps us with billing, right?
Right, cause we get refunded or we get credited for if we're not, if they're not providing the buses that we're contracted with.
Okay.
So that's something we reconcile at the end of the year. So last year, I think we saved, I wanna say almost $50,000 because there was one route that was pretty consistently being combined, so.
But there was like a minimal amount of kids and whatever, and they were able to.
I think it was minimum amount of.
It wasn't
bus drivers.
ideal, but it was, they made it work for for that
Yeah.
particular.
I'm pretty sure that was because there was not enough bus drivers, so they combined the kids together.
Well, that's the reason is bus driver shortages.
I wouldn't know their job either.
It's a very difficult industry.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's very hard to find drivers
And I know that First Student was the only one that we had that was putting in for the bid too.
for this new
Yeah.
contract.
Okay.
Page 131, we budgeted $272,736 for our special education transportation. So that's both in district as well as to service our students to out of district placements. Page 132, we budgeted $8,500 for our athletic transportation. Page 133, we budgeted $8,000 for our field trip transportation. Page 134, we budgeted $35,000 for other transportation, so that would be if like you have a music event or chess club event, they go to, that would come out of here. There's also the homeless transportation, we've talked about McKinney-Vento, so that would come out of this account, as well as summer school transportation.
But it's a lot more than 30,000 for the McKinney-Vento.
This year we're over, yeah, but this is an account that is highly volatile up and you see huge fluctuations based on the population and the needs in that given year. But yeah, you're right, this year, I mean, you can see we only spent $11,000 22, 23, but this year we're gonna be way over budget,
Right.
so.
And like Meredith had said earlier, I believe that like, you know, our reimbursement or whatever we're getting back for revenue is minuscule, so we're putting this much money aside in anticipation.
Right, so we get some of that grant funding, we also get some reimbursement from other schools.
What happens, so when we go over, where's the rest of that money coming from?
Well, we have to find savings elsewhere if we go over, so.
Just with every.
I mean, every account can be.
Well, you know, I got
So-
that, I was just,
But yeah, but
I
for
didn't know if there was
it's
a,
particularly anxiety ridden for accounts like this where, or like, you know,
those could fluctuate,
it
but
can be
yeah.
legal, can be the big fluctuation, special education, big fluctuation. So that's why we do our best to budget, but based on what our current needs are, projected needs are.
Okay, so what was the number that we had for the McKinney-Vento Act student count? Was it like 60?
64.
Okay, so it's 64. So in 2022 and 2023, the data shows that we had 66 students in Seabrook homeless according to the Department of Education. And we spent $11,449. And we have 2 under and we're over 30,000.
So again, it's similar to special education where it's really dependent on that specific, the actual students, where they live, like how far are we transporting them, what the cost share is with the other districts. I mean, it might be our responsibility or it might be the other district's responsibility, right, depending on where they live. So it's
Really
it's hard to like, you can't just say, oh, we have the numbers, it's based on who the people are.
Is there like a mileage, are you?
Well, we
if
can
you were-
save
if
money.
If you
the
were like
parent-
homeless here in Seabrook and then like went up to like Conway, do we have to provide a transport from Conway back and forth? It doesn't
Potentially
matter.
could, but the determination really is about what's in the child's best interest. So for an elementary pupil, that probably isn't gonna make a lot of sense, right? That's a long trip,
Yeah.
adding time to both ends of their day. For an 8th grader though, it might be that, you know,
Who
it
wants
does
to
make
graduate.
sense for them to finish with their peers they've been with for 9 years.
And is
we
that
would be
something that we
responsible.
would talk with the district up there to see if there is something that we
So
can
we-
work out together?
Well, wherever we can share transportation, we do that, and we have lots of examples of that, both in special ed and general ed, where we try to consolidate, share within our district, sometimes across districts, sometimes across districts outside of our SAU to share transportation.
And
for
across
the
like state
transportation
borders, like if
providers.
somebody went up to Kittery,
Correct.
you might have to send a bus to Kittery to get somebody.
Correct.
It's very hard to wrap
but-
something around
But we
sometimes.
do, so in your example, if we were transporting to and from Conway every day, and that would be a rare occurrence, because most people are gonna say that's too far and too much. But if people just, if that was happening, we'd be having a conversation with Conway, so they have a bus coming this way for any reason, we share, but then we split the cost,
Yeah.
is the way the law
Okay.
reads.
I'll be an expert at this in one day.
And then in some
Don't change by the time you
cases, we might recognize
Don't
savings
put your own
if the
agenda.
parent is able to transport, and then we reimburse the parent as opposed to so that's much less expensive.
So you would pay the parent to bring their
We
kid to
reimburse
school
them in those
Because it would
situations
be
sometimes,
cheaper.
yeah.
because they can't afford, or well, they could potentially not
So
afford
for
gas or
example,
things like
the
that.
parent is residing right out of the community, but they still this is the child, the district that their child is attending, and if they're able to make that transport, then we reimburse
I
them
cannot
for that
even hear
transport
this.
rather than hire a transportation provider. But not all, families are able to do that.
And is that like mileage things set by the federal government?
That's the IRS.
Yeah, it's 0.655.
That's the IRS.
Like per day mileage?
Yeah, it's
It's
a
like
state rate.
it's like 65 cents.
And I think my next question, I don't even know if I end up sending this in an email or not, how, is it up to the family's responsibility, I'm not trying to sign, is it up to the family's responsibility to let the school know that they're settled, they got this place, or like, does this continue, I could think?
Do we check in?
So you are eligible until you obtain permanent housing.
So
Right,
for,
so-
for some people, that could be
Forever.
years, forever,
Correct.
or just temporary, or whatever.
Correct.
Or it could be that they got permanent housing, but is there a point, so I see purchase orders for transportation, so we're assuming we're gonna be transporting for the whole year, but do we actually check in with them to see if there's been any change in status?
Quite regularly,
Yeah.
that's one of the things the
Social
social workers
workers
often
do that.
do.
Okay.
Alright, page 136. Budgeted $1,985,905 for our health insurance premiums. This was the aforementioned 23.7% premium increase. Page 137, we budgeted $58,519 for our dental insurance premiums. Page 138, we budgeted $10,456 for our group life insurance premium. Page 139, we budgeted $33,375 for long-term disability insurance. Page 140, we budgeted $717,297 for the employer's contribution for FICA.
The long-term disability insurance, that's like if somebody gets hurt here at work, that we're covering that, correct?
That's
Yep.
what it's called.
Page 141, we budgeted $1,582,186 for the employer contribution for the New Hampshire retirement system. Page 142, we budgeted $5,586 for unemployment insurance premium. Page 143, we budgeted $72,855 for our workers' compensation insurance.
So I was gonna say that specifically answered Patrick's question about if someone is injured at work, workers' compensation would be how that's
Yeah.
covered. Long-term disability is for an existing employee who is unable to return to work for a medical reason, qualifying medical reason, right? They're paid to, I think, that's 2/3 essentially of their salary for a period of time.
Page 144, we budgeted $7,000 for a 403B contribution. That's an employer match.
What is it? Oh, okay.
So that's for the administrators. They're eligible for a $2,000 match. We under budget that because they haven't taken advantage. Page 145, we budgeted $1,700 for dues and fees. This is the administration fees for our HSA our health savings account, as well as our FSA, the flexible spending account that we offer our employees. And that brings us to debt service, page 147. We budgeted $144,037 for the principal payment on bond issue. I'll note that the last payment is July of 2024, so that's this will be the last payment next year.
So the next year will not have this reflected
So
in.
next year's budget, this will be coming off,
What's
as
that-
well as
what
the
is that-
interest.
What is that for again?
It's like,
Was the debt that you incurred of putting the addition onto this building some time ago?
I think there was some energy.
Well, before my time, okay.
Yeah.
That's nice.
It was before, it was
Before everyone.
basically, I was probably in the school. That's how long ago it was.
Alright, so page 150, transfer to food service, we're budgeting $2,000. So, we have the general fund that we just went through, that was all the pages up until this point, that funds school operations. And then we have the food service fund, which is separate, because that's a self-sustaining fund, because they bring in revenue via USDA reimbursement for the National School Lunch Program, so for free and reduced population, as well as for students and staff who purchase breakfast and lunch. So if we were to run a deficit, we would have to budget to transfer from the general fund into the food service fund to cover that deficit. We do not anticipate running a deficit. The other reason to budget, which is what we're doing for $2,000, is because we are required to cover students' balances at the end of the school year. So that's for any food service balances year end.
The free and reduced lunch, that's like through Title I, USDA, correct?
It's through USDA, so it's anyone that you submit an application, whether direct certified, if they're part of a.
And the federal government gives us that money, correct?
Yes.
Remember that?
Yep. So we, so
Not-
we've actually
not-
run
Seabrook tax dollars.
we've run a profit on that, in that food service program. So we actually, as you know, we've had to actively try to spend down that surplus because of that. Page 152, we budgeted $81,418 for the school nutrition director's salary. Page 153, we budgeted $141,282 for our food service staff salaries.
So back to 152. The 16 days of 5,764.
So that is the summer program, so that's to provide meals during that, the summer, the 4 weeks of summer program. ES4 and general ed summer program. Page 154, we have $1 for substitutes, keep the account open. Page 155, we budgeted $41,508 for health insurance. Page 156, we budgeted $1,466 for dental insurance. Page 157, we budgeted $17,037 for the employer contribution. FICA. Page 158, we budgeted $15,892 for the employer contribution to the New Hampshire retirement system. Page 159, we budgeted $4,590 for repair and maintenance of equipment. Page 160, budget $5,000 for non-food supplies, so that would be paper goods, utensils, cleaning products, gloves, oven mitts, etc. Page 160.
Wait, hold on. We provide, so this goes to SAS. I thought that we paid them, so this is a different budget?
So, no, so we provide an after-school dinner, and that, but that's actually a,
That's not the snack they get like when SAS starts, it's like a dinner.
well, it's actually part of that. There's both the snack, after-school snack, and then a meal. And that's both through our food service program, and we get reimbursed for it. But
By who?
by USDA.
So you provide the meal part and get reimbursed by USDA, SAS provides a snack in addition to that?
Well, they're the ones that are actually like handing it out and stuff, but we're the
Oh.
ones that are
Okay,
getting,
Find the funds for it.
preparing it and,
Right.
okay,
and getting reimbursed for it.
gotcha.
Page 161, we budgeted $80,000 for supplies, milk and food, so there are some increases in these accounts because we under budgeted as part of that spend down, plan last year. Page 162, we budgeted $25,000 for USDA commodities, so this would be for, we get full reimbursement through USDA for these, kind of staple goods, so like canned goods, blocks of cheese,
So even though it's in the budget for $25,000, you're saying it's neutral because we're getting that $25,000 back?
everything in the food service is neutral. We're gonna have a corresponding revenue that matches everything we budget for.
Yeah, the only thing in the operating budget for food service is that $2,000.
The transfer, the interfund
To pay
transfer.
the costs.
Everything that we are, I'm sorry, in the food service account, nothing will affect the tax rate. So
Okay.
whether it's an increase or a decrease, it doesn't affect the tax rate.
We have to like show that that's what we're budgeting for, to hand
And
it
it
over to the
affects the total
USDA.
operating budget,
Yeah.
but in reality, so even if we have an increase in food service and that increases our bottom line, however, we're gonna get a corresponding revenue source that will offset every cost in food service.
So this money though is reflected in the 17
Yes,
million?
it is. It's
So
in-
it looks
it looks, even
like a
though,
lot,
even though it's not really affecting the tax rate,
But it's coming
it
back.
looks like it's an increase on the operating budget. It contributes to the 3.5% increase that we,
But then it is affecting the tax rate.
well, it is, but
Right.
it's offset by a corresponding revenue. So if we had a
Budget for the
decrease, it would have been less revenue coming in.
Yeah.
So you're voted, it's included in the operating budget, but it has no effect on the tax rate.
Right, because the tax rate setting includes both the projected expenses as well as the projected revenue.
So we estimate the revenues,
Yeah.
and those revenues have to match the food
Okay.
service program.
so the 17 million is not the only number we're looking at when we look at the tax rate, it's also whatever
It's
you're
also the
projecting
revenue,
coming
yeah, so
into
when
the-
so people don't see the revenue that we're estimating, but it affects the tax rate every year.
Is there any way to put that on the ballot to let,
The 17 million sounds,
So
I mean,
the Department of Revenue has specific language for the warrant articles, so we have a little leeway in what we can put there.
maybe in our
But we can
Go
certainly
ahead.
discuss that during the budget meetings, the deliberative session,
And that'd be a good point to bring up, to especially to let people know.
Okay, so when the information comes over from us to the budget meeting, and budget committee,
he'll show you the revenue at that, projected revenue at that meeting when it goes to the town's
they
budget.
receive the estimated revenues. It's the estimated revenues is one of the documents that you receive.
yeah,
With the budget documents. And I think the budget committee is aware of that, but something we can certainly highlight. So. Alright, page 163, we budgeted $2,741 for software. Page 164, we budgeted $1,000 for equipment. Page 165, we budgeted $2,000 for other expenses, so that would be, uniforms, dues and fees, training. Page one, and that's it.
That's it?
So that is the operating budget. I'm going to take a 2-minute break to run to the restroom.
I
If you don't mind.
second that motion
I
to do.
just snuck out.
And at which point, when I return, we can revisit any accounts that you'd like to, you can make any motions, and then, and at which point, once you, decide on a budget, you can, then vote on the overall operating budget. And then we'll go into warrant articles, which should be
You wanna
really quick.
take a-
so I have a question that reminds me.
So we're gonna take a 5-minute recess at 8:11. We'll shall return approximately 8:15-ish.
I second.
So Dan, that's Matt, can we start by making a motion for any budget item that we would potentially like to change or adjust?
So for any accounts that we'd like to adjust, this would be a good time to make that motion.
Okay.
I will make a motion to change the specific, line number here.
Yes, do
Yeah. I make a motion that we add, the teacher's position back into the budget.
all in favor? So that's unanimous.
We need Rhonda.
And Rhonda.
You
Who's
want-
Rhonda? Oh, Meredith.
Alright, so that was unanimous, right?
I do have a question. If there's any positions that are proposed in the budget, is there possibly a way to put them on the warrant article so that the taxpayers can make that decision?
I don't think so.
Why is that?
I've never heard of that before. It's typically a capital expense or CBA.
So I know if they're in the
I
union, you
can-
can't do that. If they're not in the union, I'm pretty sure you can.
How do we then
Well,
I
make
don't-
plans for a position with the potential of whether it will or will not?
so I do know like the fire department or the water department, they always put on the warrant articles of, we wanna add 2 fire departments, it goes on the warrant article for the people who vote. It was on it last year, they were on before, they ended up something up to 8, they got those down. But I do know, as far as town departments go, they will put new positions on the warrant article.
Right, but as a
But-
school, how does that?
I'm not familiar with it. That doesn't mean it's not possible. So it's something we can certainly find out. So if, so adding the classroom teachers, just so you're aware, that will bring the total operating budget to $18,135,293, which is a 4.31% overall increase.
Can you say that again, Matt?
18,135,293,
Yep.
that's 4.31%.
And you guys have the opportunity, I know this was for a 3rd grade teacher spot, correct? That was the one that was gonna be cut.
That was the plan, yep.
Who would determine where that extra teacher, is that something that we can, if the middle school needs it, we can utilize it in the middle school? Or is this, it doesn't have to be specific to that 3rd grade class, correct? That's not like you guys should have the administrative power to move whatever teachers around that you need to, correct?
Well, I think it sounds like the board's intent for the position is to fill a 3rd grade position. However, the administration always has that ability to move staffing around. Now, there's also certifications that come into play as far as.
Like middle school versus elementary school.
Yeah, I think for the most part, we're able to sort through certification issues at K level, but there are some issues that we have to work through.
I don't wanna speak for the whole board here and tell me if I'm wrong, but if it's not needed in that, the school needs an extra teacher somewhere. Like, that is clear and obvious everywhere, like, I would not wanna take a teacher away from you.
So if
If
you're,
it's-
They're gonna need to
not-
fill that spot the following year, cause the population is
If
greater
it's,
in
if
grade
it's
1.
not necessarily needed for that direct grade, we can find a spot that it might make it easier on a different grade level, correct?
So if that's the board's intent is to leave it up to the administration on how to best use the position, we will take that direction and provide, when,
Right.
Uh-huh.
Does
I mean, I
everyone,
would
does
say
everyone
we
agree on
trust
that?
Well, as long as it's a teacher in a grade, right?
And we're not
Yeah.
increasing the class sizes as
I
a
think
result
that's-
of that,
yeah.
is what,
I don't think it has to be a classroom teacher expense because that's the salary that's being proposed.
Because
You
it-
just add it, it
because
wouldn't be like
because
a
like an
EA and
Right.
something.
Because like an interventionist is a different rate, correct? Like if you.
So-
then it's
Do you have
in-
intervention?
That's my
Intervention
point,
is
is no,
part of the
it
teacher's
needs to be a
contract.
teacher
For
in the
example,
classroom.
if kindergarten is only came in very, very well, we would have the conversation about when we wait, not that I wanna say that, we went on 3, could we use that position somewhere else, or do you want to not fill the position? I understand what you're saying.
So say for whatever reason, the fourth grade class prospectively, their levels, they're suffering more, so could we break them up more and have another teacher
Well,
there
yeah, like,
instead, is what we're saying.
fifth grade is like the perfect example, like.
I think
you
so.
have-
Yeah.
You have people, like, you could use an extra math teacher, so if you could slide that in, that if you needed it there, then that's something I don't wanna, like, from a budget perspective, I don't wanna tell you where to put that teacher. I want you to have that teacher at your disposal. And if one class has to be a little bit bigger, cause you can handle it down here, because you need it up here to get these kids along, like, I think that's what I'm trying to get at.
I think it needs to be more geared towards maybe going to a higher grade, if it's gonna be third, if it's not gonna be third, maybe fourth or fifth, but I personally don't support bringing them to second and first, because I feel like that it's getting closer to the middle school where they need the support.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I'm
I'm just saying, make sure
trust you to make that choice. If it's third, then great, but again, based on the numbers, if they come in and, you do have a lot more in fourth and you
Yeah, I
shift
mean,
into
every
fourth.
year, if numbers change, we may make an adjustment anyway.
Like I said,
Bear in
so-
mind,
I mean,
we're
we
gonna be
have-
hiring for a position probably this spring, right? Because we don't currently have a position. So we'd be hiring for, most likely hiring for a position this spring, and we're gonna need to think about certification. So we're gonna be still making that decision well before enrollment settles in the fall.
Okay.
So just so you all understand that, like practically speaking, we can't wait until the first day of school.
No, yeah,
to
we know what
determine
happens when
our
we wait till the
assignment.
first day of school and stuff.
I know, I wanna make it clear that I know that there's a lot of enrollments for preschool and trying to bring in more preschool and kindergarten children. I don't feel like that we need to put a teacher down. I think we need to put the teacher where there's maybe a grade, like possibly fifth, where there is a lot of behaviors, so that gives an extra teacher in that grade. So that kind of spreads out the students, so they can
Yeah,
focus
if you
on.
think like the third grade can be a 17-person class, cause you want your
Why
fifth
don't you turn
grade to
into a
be
preschool
at
teacher
a
instead of
smaller class size, cause you can help move people along. I think we all understand the gist here, right?
Yeah, I mean, you do have to, like they said, those certifications, a lot are certified K through 4 or 5th through 8. But also when it comes to a math teacher, you would want someone that has that certification in math specifically to teach that program. So I think that I mean, we can't, yes, I agree with you, I think we need to give them the flexibility to put that teacher where needed, but we can't just say only if that teacher is needed in 3rd, 4th, or 5th. Not that I agree with you, I think that's where it seems like it's needed.
Well, I don't think we need any more preschool or kindergarten teachers, that's my point. My point is they're getting older, is where the test scores are going down.
But we definitely need the extra teacher.
Yes,
So make the motion that it's from 3rd through 8th, and whatever they choose,
yep, that's good.
from 3rd through 8th grade. But it will be in their discretion and how they use it.
Right, perfect.
Can I make that motion to amend that?
You already voted, so you would have to make a new motion.
I make a motion that that new teacher's position is for 3rd through 8th grade.
A second.
All in favor?
Did you have to, I didn't amend that last one?
No, you already
It's a
voted
sec-
on it,
it's a
it's a
new
second motion.
Yeah, okay.
Any other accounts that you'd like to address?
So are we addressing accounts, so if it's proposed and we don't address it, then it means it automatically goes in? Is that what we're looking at here? Is there
Well,
something on
if you don't make any adjustments, it's what we have on the paper right now, the
What
proposal.
goes to the,
So-
what goes to the budget committee?
it? Well, I'm not, I'm making a motion that we do not add social workers to the budget. Cause I feel like that we have a district-wide social worker that's being utilized by other districts. We have to pay $100,000 for one. And we already have a social worker.
We've been utilizing two though in the district, I mean, just for,
Right, and there's been a free one that just, there's one that is now being assisted in the other schools and they don't have any social workers.
yes,
Yeah,
because
it's
there's
just
needs.
in our school.
Well, they're not saving us money because I'm looking at a $93,000 position right here that we need to put we're adding into the budget.
But again, if we take that out, what does that look like? That looks like contracted position for something else. But it's still a social worker, but we don't
Christina,
know.
you don't have to agree with me. I'm making a motion that we
I'm
do
not.
not add social workers
I'm
into
not
the
trying to
budget.
argue with you, I'm trying to discuss something that you were bringing up and trying to make sure that everyone has all of the information.
Can I just clarify, Kelly, your motion is to reduce, you said social workers, we're proposing one additional, are you proposing to reduce both or not to add an additional social worker?
Well, we have a social worker that's being paid by, has ESSER funds. So we would be adding her to the budget, correct?
So we're adding
We have-
one
yeah, we
position
have
to the
one and
budget.
we're proposing to
And
add a
currently ESSER funded this
Yeah.
year, we're proposing to put it in the operating budget next year. So
And
you're,
I'm proposing that we do not.
do not for the one position.
And that's the only one that we have that is being added in, correct?
Correct,
But then we also have a BCBA that's being added,
correct,
which is another $92,000.
yes.
And right now we pay $50,000 contracted out.
So there's a motion to not add the social work position that currently ESSER funded, is there a second?
Is there any other things that anyone would like to make a motion on adding, removing, adjusting?
I'm gonna make a motion that we don't reduce the technology person's position by 50%. That we keep it at full-time where it is.
What's our budget gonna look like if we do that? What's it gonna come out to?
That puts us at 18,160-ish.
Huh?
Benefits as well.
It put, oh, okay. So just with the 26,000 added back in, he's doing real math, but I'm just doing quick math. 161 plus. So, I mean, you're over 18 million, but probably by that point, I'm assuming it'd be 18.2, right, instead of 18.1.
What happens if we take away that 35,000 to offset the IT?
It's about $42,000.
Cause that's what
42
this-
increase, okay.
So
So 70.
It would be
not
18.
78. So it'd be 18,178 and change.
I can give you the exact number if you wanna make a motion. Oh, you did make a motion.
Right,
So-
we have a motion, we don't yet have a second.
My motions don't include numbers.
We have a motion to keep
I'm
the
just
tech
trying to have a
position at
discussion about
full-time
it, so.
from Michelle, and so we need a second to that motion.
I will second it for discussion.
It's 41,998.
So what do
Would
we
be
have?
added in instead of, okay, yeah.
So if you want the total, will be 18,177,291. It'll be 4.55%.
Yeah, I just wanna be able to make sure that the budget's gonna pass, and what's the default if it doesn't?
The default is, so it changes because when you eliminate positions, it comes off the default as well. So I'm gonna, give me 1 second.
So what the default is that take away the teacher's position and.
Well, it goes back down to whatever that default is, and then, yeah.
But the default would change, because I think
if it doesn't pass, do we lose the social worker?
Yeah,
I still wanted them.
Yeah, and the teacher's already in there.
I was gonna share it.
The teacher's already in there, so,
What do we vote on?
so the
They're adding more
the social worker is with ESSA funds, which means she's not in the budget. So if we get a default budget, she's not included. The
But that
teacher's,
teacher that we just voted on
Right.
is already included?
yeah, she's already in the budget. So the default budget, we would keep her,
Well, why did we have to vote on her to?
because it went
Once you proposed budget removes that position, that changed a couple of years ago. That position would not be included.
Wait, I'm
So
sorry.
it went
What?
from both.
So because he proposed to get rid of her, she would not be covered in the default?
Correct?
No, because we didn't vote on it yet.
So if you don't put it, so
Once you
that
do,
position wasn't in the operating budget, so it's not part of the default,
The
The
teacher,
social work.
the social work.
no, I'm talking about the
We're
teacher.
Teacher's position is going back in the default, which is
Right.
what I'm doing right now. So the
So-
default is,
teachers. We're back
So the
to
teacher
this.
would
Separate.
cover,
so the teacher would be in the
right,
default.
the social worker would not.
So
Social
that would
worker
not be
would
the
not.
only thing that we lose.
The computer
if we
technician
go
would
I know
with-
that, I'm just saying that that's.
So the differential is $393,969, so
Which
that's, the default is $17,783,322. So it's, we'd have to come up with almost $400,000 if it went to default somewhere.
Which again, we need to be specific about, because when we defaulted 2 years ago, we lost a whole preschool bus, which took away transportation for, I know my kid was included. But, so I feel like those are really important, like, yes, if the social worker isn't wanted in this position, in theory, it sounds like, oh, yeah, well, if we don't vote the budget in, then that gets removed. But what else are we losing in addition to that? Like, that needs to be.
Christina, then why are we here?
What do you mean?
Why is the school board here?
We literally just added something back into the budget.
No, I'm asking, why are we here? Like, if we wanna take things out, we're being told that it's gonna be contracted in because they're gonna have to use it, even though we've just found out that we're using a social worker for students that are not special ed. So technically, we're not required to provide education to them, but we're being told that we need two, and follow me, we need two social workers because we're required by law, by the government, to give special education, which we are.
Well, we don't need two for special
No,
education.
I know, I'm saying that we're required, obviously, to give, even though we're supposed to make sure that they're all educated about proficiency anyway, but they're not. My point is that we have one social worker, they wanna add another one, okay? But we were just told a few minutes ago that we're using one of them to educate students that are not under special education.
I don't think they're educating them, I think they're working with
Well,
them.
okay, they're using a social worker that is not all the children that they're using for the social worker are special education, right?
Well, I think that's everywhere though, like not every
I know, but you're
social-
not listening.
I'm really trying to.
So they're saying that if we don't give them a second social worker, they're going to have to bring them in anyway. Because by law, we have to provide services. We do have to provide services, but they just admitted that some of the services that are being used for that social worker are not special ed. So that is not true. It is not required by law to provide social worker to students that are not special education.
So for students
Am I
that
right?
don't,
So that's correct.
Correct.
And based on the number of hours of services required, one social worker is not adequate to fill those required needs, which is why the team is proposing two. And it also provides additional support to
It's
But
not-
how do you know? How do you know that? Because
Because I
You're
looked at the
using
number
them
of
for
hours
students-
that were calculated in the IEPs for social workers, and there's like 26 hours, which
That's
is more
in the
than one
service
person can
delivery,
provide.
right?
That's a direct service delivery and consultation.
that has to
And
be.
that doesn't include participation in team meetings, it doesn't include the consultation piece with administration, like the weekly attendance meetings.
And the
Which they also have to provide.
But I don't understand why you would be providing services to students that are not special education with a with a social worker if it's costing taxpayers money and it's not required.
For the same reason we provide them for counseling. right? We have a school counselor, we provide services to any student who might benefit from that service, but some students might have that in their IEP, and some students have social work in their IEP, but we provide the services to all students. The proposal is to have a second full-time social worker because we have more than enough for one person required under special education law, and the recommendation of the administration was that they're using that person in a full-time capacity and feel that they continue to need that person in a full-time capacity. So again, you can eliminate that. There will be some contracted need for social work services to meet the IEP needs.
It would be the 26.
So why don't we do part-time then? Why don't we do a part-time social worker instead of a full-time
You
social
can,
worker?
it's unlikely that you're gonna find a part-time social worker, so you'll likely pay more to contract for the service.
So basically, that was my question to Christina, is why are we here? Because no matter what we say, we're being told that if we don't approve it, it's gonna cost more money. If we do approve it, great. If we remove a teacher, then we're saving money, but if we add the teacher, then look at the number, now we're bringing the budget way up, and we don't wanna go too far, because then we're gonna go into a default. So honestly, why are we here? Because
Isn't that exactly what we're working through? Isn't that the whole point of having these meetings, is to work through
Right.
the budget together? So we are adding things, we are working together to do it, but there's only so much that we can do sitting at this table, knowing the information that we know. And there has to be, again, we go back to the same things we talk about in the meetings when we go on and on forever. It's that we have to trust administration at some point, and if you don't, that's fine. But where do we get our information from?
So
Administration, we get it from people that are in the building, that know firsthand what's required legally, what do they need day to day. I wanna put my trust in an administrator, specifically the two of you, to tell me, I need this because my kids need this, they need these services, whatever, we have it right here, they need 24.85 hours, which again, what I'm saying, it's not that what you're saying is not valid, of course it is, like what you're saying, like, yeah, let's hire a part-time social worker, like, yes, in theory, that makes a lot of sense, because in theory, that sounds like, well, yeah, we could save that money, but I don't think everything is simple and cut and dry, where we can just pick and choose and make decisions like that to say, well, we'll just remove that, because we don't really need it, but they do need it.
So in the town, all right, at a budget committee meeting at the town, if a department head comes forward and says, I need this, this, and this, are you gonna trust their judgment?
I would hope that if it was in a situation where I felt like they were in charge of things that directly
If a
affect.
department head came to a budget meeting and you were there,
Yeah.
and
I would,
they
but
wanted to add staff, would you trust them, or would you question them?
I would question them the same way that we're questioning these guys, so we
Like,
ask
would
for
you
all of this
assume that what they're
information.
telling you they need?
Unless if they provided me documented information that said, this is what we have to provide and we don't have the services, or we've been paying X amount of overtime for the people that we have because we can't do this and that, yeah.
Because I don't feel like this information justifies it. I mean, we're adding more services, but the projected revenue coming in is less than it was projected last year.
A lot of the services we're providing are things that we have to provide.
Right, but
So
what I'm
the
saying to
hours
you is
that
the
we-
projected revenue for last year was $180,000, was the special, the Medicaid. The Medicaid was $55,000, but the special education, it says estimated revenues for 23-24, $180,000, but they're showing the projected for next year, $100,000.
Because numbers change, right? Or you
But
guys
wouldn't-
speak on that, 'cause
But
I-
if we need more services, wouldn't the projected revenues go up?
Special education aid is based on a threshold for out-of-district placements, so if you recall, the special education, the out-of-district placements actually went down by
Yep.
$200,000, so that corresponding, revenue also went down. So we have other costs in other areas of special education, but in that area where we get reimbursed, it went down.
So we get reimbursed.
we're spending less, but also getting less in return,
Right.
potentially.
We're spending less?
We're spending less in special, like what are you saying about the
Out
special
of just
education?
placement, yes,
Yeah,
but
so that's why we're
not
getting
here.
less.
Right, not
With that.
in-house, we're not spending less.
I mean, in reality, the special education budget is a slight reduction. The only reason there's an increase is because we moved the preschool teacher from general ed into special education, but that's not a net increase, it's just we just moved it accounts. But the overall special education budget actually had a slight decrease, with the exception of transportation, which did go up.
So my reasoning for wanting to cut things is that I'm not here for myself, I'm here for the taxpayers, and we've heard very loud and clear in the last 3 to 4 months, everything they've said. And this whole budget proposal does not support anything that they have voiced their concerns about. So I feel comfortable with the fact that I'm not okay with adding another social worker or another BCBA, which I haven't even made that motion yet, because we've had taxpayers here in the last 3 to 4 months that have specifically asked to have classroom structures changed. That hasn't happened. They've also asked for there to be some more focus on trying to improve the test scores, and I don't see that happening. So that's why I'm not here because of me. I'm here because I was voted in by them, and their voice has been very loud and clear. Maybe I'm hearing it wrong.
So we had a motion on the table to keep the tech position at full-time. Motion for Michelle, seconded by Jen.
So, still up for discussion, since
Or, yeah.
we'll talk about the position here.
Yeah.
This is something that you guys are all comfortable with putting directly onto one person, and you guys think that can be accomplished? Is this going to overload the one I mean, I get like new technology, there should probably be less issues as far as like fixing some stuff, but it does seem like everything runs off of technology. And is it going to overwhelm the one person that we have here?
I wonder too if we had it in a grant originally, because we that's like the position that we added. I would think that was because we also added a lot of new technology at that time. Is that correct?
I don't think that was grant funded.
Or you said it was in something, did you say it was in some sort of funding?
The social worker.
No, I'm sorry, we're
No, we're
now on the
talking
part-time.
about the extra computer tech.
So
The actual motion is for the,
right, so that was previously one position, then it went to
Right,
the halftime position a few years ago, and then it got moved to a full-time.
So it was a half-time prior to being the full-time?
Yes.
So we would just be reverting back to what we had prior to adding all of the extra technology and stuff that we had added?
Right, I think we've had it full-time for, has it been 2 years? 3 years?
Yes, coming up on 2 years, I think, yeah.
2 years.
Alright.
was she the one who was doing it part-time prior? Before
No.
we
No.
No, so there's a chance that she'll be gone if she.
Yeah, I mean, that's a real
Part-time.
concern, I
Then
mean,
he'll just be doing,
well, we'd try to hire
I
someone,
mean, you're gonna find somebody.
but it's a challenge, I mean, we did, but that's a challenge, that's absolutely, it's gonna be hard to find someone for a part-time computer technician role.
Alright, so I was just told by somebody that it is possible to put the positions on a warrant article. I'm just getting clarification.
so, we gotta vote on this position then. If it's gone back to, if it was a halftime position prior, and everyone is comfortable with it going back to a halftime position, how comfortable are you having only a halftime position with?
Don't
I
pressure
mean,
me,
It's not
I'm
gonna
putting
see-
Dan in
Yeah,
difficulty.
Dana is in the spot,
Dan-
behind the camera does not want to be put on the spot.
Dan didn't make that recommendation.
I'm sure
That's-
he did.
that's
I'm sure he
an
did not. I
adminis-
mean,
that was
it
an
just seems like a
administrative
lot
It's
to
gonna
put
take
on
away,
some-
because if she doesn't wanna do it part-time, then he's gonna be doing it all by himself.
We can't turn around and ask the
I mean, I
Teachers
can't,
how they
I'm gonna bring
somebody
somebody in and do that.
I'm
If,
sorry,
if they can find
Somebody.
somebody, yeah.
I think,
we would look to hire someone, that's not that's not something you contract at all.
So if she leaves, then he's gonna be doing it all alone.
Well,
They
we'd
try to find
hire
somebody.
half-time.
I
We
would say,
we would post the position and hope
Right.
to hire.
I would say that if we're looking at boosting test scores and things, and our motions have geared obviously towards that, to me, this position it's not a direct correlation, not that it's not needed, not that it's not important, but if that's what we're judging against when we're trying to be fiscally responsible, that would just be my 2
Yeah.
cents.
My complaint though is the tests are done on a computer and we need assistance in order to get all those things up and running.
But for $26,000 of the budget, that would just be the only thought of that. But it's up to you, Michelle, if you wanna make the motion?
The
We already
motion's
have
been,
a
the motion's been made.
So we already heard the motion.
And there's already a second, it has to be.
Jen, you already did that, so then it would be,
Are we ready to vote?
There's no more discussion, we'll call the vote.
okay, so is there any more discussion on that? Okay, so all in favor?
Wait, so what the-
All in favor?
It was your
I'm
motion.
distracted.
It's a long mo-
You motioned to bring
So the
the.
motion is to bring it back to full-time, to
Yes.
put a roughly $40-something thousand increase to the overall budget.
which ups it to 4.85%?
No, 4.55.
4.5.
Yep, that's 4.3
So-
to 4.55.
Alright, so all in favor?
Can we table that till we figure out what we're doing with the rest of the budget?
You could withdraw the motion.
I can withdraw it, yeah, that's fine by me.
No, I mean, if you guys wanna keep it, that's fine.
Well, I just wanna make sure we're still gonna be talking
I mean, at
other
this
things
point-
here tonight.
You can also just
and on that
re-roll
note.
it.
Yeah, at this point though, if 3 are voting no, even Kelly, even if you did, I mean, I don't mean that in any other way other than just like really trying to work through
Mm-hmm.
moving things.
I think we have other things we also need to discuss too.
So
So,
the
can I resend it? Are we voting?
motion is on the floor, we have to take a vote and or you have to
Or
withdraw
table.
it.
Oh, withdraw it then.
To-
Okay,
Anyone, if there are any other motions?
alright, any other motions?
I make a motion that we do not add a BCBA to the budget.
So Matt, if that was something that ended up being done, would you then put in a $50,000 contracted fee into the budget, or how do you work that? If we're already paying contracted money,
There'd be some amount of contracted services, so I'm not sure if 50,000 is, that's what this year's contract is. I think it'll be quite higher
Mm-hmm.
than that next year.
so you would basically roll in a contracted amount, which potentially could be very similar, end up being, obviously without the benefits.
It would, yeah, I mean, it'd be less than the total compensation, but it would be an increase in the contracted services.
So it would be less than the total contribution, did you hear that?
Yeah,
Yes, but if we actually
Then you're
approve the
contract.
if we approve the position in the budget, then we get more services, generally speaking, than what we get when we contract.
Yeah.
cause the services are needed regardless, I mean, like,
Right.
we have to provide them, that is,
And that's something that I think we,
So we're not
when we're
using
talking about some of
BCBA's
the,
all for students that don't have IEPs?
so there would be some general education work for the BCBA.
Okay, so then why are they in our general education budget?
BCBA.
Well, I mean, the position is in the special education budget,
Right.
but it would be, a portion of it would be general ed.
Would a portion of it be paid by general, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, when we report to the state,
Okay.
it would be,
We need.
But they're not gonna reimburse us to the state if they're not special education.
well, we're not getting reimbursed for BCBA anyway.
What about social worker, if we have a social worker and general
Well,
education?
I mean, we could get reimbursed for some, I guess, some Medicaid. There might be some potentially, but very,
It's-
there's,
It's also not
but we don't
always-
get reimbursed for those was,
And the reimbursement's minuscule usually. I mean, I think that we clearly have behavior issues and the BCBA is going to work with special ed and non-special ed kids regardless. They're gonna work with
there's a lot of
behavior issues.
prevention there too.
How are these other schools functioning without a social worker
Or BCP.
or
Do all of them
BCBA? Do they have
I-
BCBAs?
I think we asked that question at a prior meeting, and the
Yeah, and I
answer
want
is
to ask
that
again.
Northampton, for example, for its 270 students, has a full-time school psychologist and a full-time full-time school counselor, and those two positions share the work that in this case is done by the social worker and the school counselor. Hampton Falls has 108, they also have a full-time BCBA. Hampton Falls has 180 students, they contract for BCBA support, although I believe there may be a proposal for that. They have an 8 MAP school psych and a full-time school counselor.
Yes.
Southampton has 86 students, I think, this year. They have a full-time school counselor, and that person, because of their student population, picks up some of those other responsibilities. They access the SAU-wide social worker in those 3 smaller districts, as do you, to also provide support for families, particularly who have maybe children at the high school and at the middle school, or at both elementary and middle school. That person also is providing support, and they also provide some backup support to pre-K.
So in theory, if we combined the total students of those other,
Everybody's seen her here though, but.
if we combine the total numbers of students for the other schools, we're still not to our total, but as far as like what they would be providing, you're talking multiple guidance counselors, multiple school psychologists, multiple potentially
You have one
BCBA,
school
like,
psych to serve your 640 students.
and we have one to service 200 and something.
We have guidance counselors too. I mean, that's not,
Yes.
okay.
Which they also have.
So are they just using that other position to
270.
do the job of the BCBA?
Sorry, BCB, I was talking about the social work question that Kelly raised.
The
BCBA,
jobs are not interchangeable.
Northampton and has its own BCBA for its 270 students. They have a full-time BCBA. Southampton, because of the student population, contracts for some BCBA support because they have a small need for that right now. And Hampton Falls also contracts. And I wanna say roughly 0.6 in their building right now for their 180 students.
Okay, so Kelly made a motion to, remove the BCBA from the budget. Is there a second? Are there other motions that anyone would like to bring forward? I mean, I think, again, I wanna reiterate the fact that we are doing our best to be fiscally responsible, and by adding or removing or whatever, it's not, I mean, I can only speak for myself, but I know, I trust you guys enough that you're doing the same thing, and your ultimate goal is the same thing. And, I mean, I think it's also important to know that, like, the budget for the other schools are more than half of ours, but they have roughly 1/3 or less of the amount of students that we have. So yes, while 17 or 18 million is a very large number, if we're comparing, let's not apples to apples, but if we're comparing numbers it's not, we're not very far off. We're not, by adding these new positions or by incorporating these things in the budget, it's not like we're sending our budget, I mean, double, triple, whatever these other budgets in other schools that do or don't have these positions and that have, so proportionate to the number of students that we have, it seems like the budget is,
What does the 35,000 do if we take it away from giving it to SAS? Cause that was in the budget for next year. That would fund Dawn's position, that would fund, a portion of the BCBA difference, cause isn't it like 40-something thousand?
It's 35.
Well, no, yeah,
Oh,
but the
the other
SAS is
Oh, yes,
35,000,
I'm sorry.
whereas the difference in the BCBA thing, I think if we took them on in the budget, it's 90-something thousand, whereas we're already paying a 50 contract and we're likely to go over that.
The only issue with status contribution is, as part of the grant that they received, the 21st Century Grant, it needs to be, or there's supposed to be a contribution from the school.
The partnership, yeah, but we pay for their ice rink, premium for that, is that what that money comes out of?
That falls under the school's insurance policy already.
So that's a financial contribution, so
It
could
wasn't
that be
really like
considered?
Extra in theory because it was something, but the school is technically liable because it's under our insurance, but
It didn't raise our premium.
Right. it wasn't like an additional expense.
It just
because
falls,
of
it just
that.
falls.
No, I thought we had to have a separate just because of the ice rink.
No, it falls under our existing policy.
It's all right right now, it's not theirs.
All right, Brian, jeez.
Hopefully it's colder.
Yeah, I actually, yeah, but I have to go through another season if it's an ice fishing, it's gonna be a lot.
I wonder, is there a way to adjust the amount that we are providing to SAS? Again, not saying that, I mean, I don't know.
It's
Is that-
hard,
it's a
exactly,
hard-
yes.
It's a hard line because we did remove the 35 last year, and in that budget, it made sense because we were, again, trying to
They
out.
doubled the program.
But could you consider some of the financial contribution we make as having our janitors, a building, like all those types of things as like a financial contribution, maybe as part of the partnership? Or am I missing something?
You're not necessarily missing something.
I know I
It's
wasn't
just-
here for this stuff, I'm
Right,
trying to
we-
figure out where we can.
So last year we were giving 70. Initially, we were
Okay.
giving 35 for elementary, 35 for middle. Last year, when one of them was going to be rolled over into the budget from ESSER, it was decided to remove that from the budget so that now they only get 35 instead of 70, which is where they were at originally.
And it keeps our contribution like in line with pretty much what their grant is gonna be needed to. Like I said, we have to put some sort of money into SAS to maintain their grant, and they did double their program, and we did slash it in half.
I guess I didn't see that in the
Slash-
grant proposal. when I
Slash
read
it
so
in half last year.
That's what I wanted.
There is something in the 21st Century Grant that says something about the contribution from, I forget the term, but like, you know, the whole
Match.
school or whatever, the school that you're working with or something. There is a level of where a grant could be removed because you don't have that funding anymore. Not saying that it 100% would be, but I remember that discussion after the last year, that with the money going down, that they could technically pull that grant. And so we need motions, and it is.
For what?
I don't know, if anybody has a motion.
To adjourn.
No, we have more of the warrant articles, right?
Yeah, and budget.
Okay, so,
Do we have
I'm
another
gonna
meeting on
make a-
Friday?
We have a meeting Friday night.
We do, although we are very close to finishing the budget, it'd be nice to have a full board
It would
vote,
to be
because
done.
Christina won't be here on Friday. So ideally, it'd be nice to wrap it up tonight, so that we have a full vote.
well, I feel like, I mean, does anyone else have a specific motion about an item on the budget that they would either like to remove or add in before we make a motion to accept the budget as is with adjustments?
I have a question. So when we get the accounts payable, it's stamped and it says a board, approved by the board, but we actually haven't signed off on it yet.
Yeah, the stamp is for you to approve it.
Right, but we haven't approved it yet.
That's just a spot for you to.
So is there a way that we can see what's going through before it actually goes out the door? Because we're getting the accounts payable to sign off on, but it actually, the money's already gone out. So we're approving on something that, well, we're actually signing off on something that we really didn't approve or didn't approve because the invoices have already gone out. Am I right?
Well, when I send it to you, it hasn't gone out. So it's just, I mean, it pretty much goes out that next day,
Right?
but, certainly hold the checks until we have a quorum. The problem is we have 5 manifests
Yeah.
that haven't been approved for this month. That's an issue. The treasurer's not gonna be able to reconcile. We could encounter, I mean, this is an RSA that the board needs to approve these. Now, if you have an issue with some of these manifests, you need to let me know, and we can, then we can address those, but we do need to approve them.
Because we did just pay that employee out another $6,000.
You know,
So does that mean that we just put these people in the budget, but we're gonna continue to pay this money out?
so I mean, as we explained, like those
I mean,
were,
does it just, I mean, we're adding people, the taxpayers are gonna be paying more money, and we're still continuing to keep, for example, what was it, $20,000 we paid somebody in not even a month and a half?
Matt corrected the last.
Yes, he did, but it's
to say
still,
that there was-
right, but it's still going, it's still happening, we just paid her another
We
$6,000.
are paying an employee because we have a vacant position. We have a vacant access position, so that is being filled by another teacher. So we have someone who is providing some LEA support, and we are paying that person to come in and do that.
Is that coming out of that vacant positions, like,
well, it's coming out of the
financial, it's
contracted services account, just like if we had a vacant.
We did this last year. We had a vacant special education teacher position. We weren't able to find
I
a
mean,
teacher.
we need to
contracted for
provide
some
these
support.
services, so we contract them out, just like the BCBA, just like that. If we don't have a social worker, we're gonna have to contract out for a portion of the social worker, so there's those special education costs that we're required to provide, we're gonna contract out if we don't have the people. So,
Okay, so what you're basically telling me is that the regular education is how much is that budget?
The,
83% of the,
No, amount, how much is the amount that we're paying? How much is the regular budget?
so the regular education department is $4,771,040. That one function.
Let's do that.
And that includes the classroom teacher reduction, and it also includes the preschool teacher being moved to special education, so I have to add back the classroom teacher position, and it's
Because what I'm hearing is that we're adding them into the budget, but you're still telling me you're still telling me that we're still gonna keep adding these services in at a contracted rate.
no, only if it's needed, if it's needed, if we have a vacancy, so in this case, there's a teacher that's missing, so we have to contract out.
No, I'm talking about the Patricia Stone. That's who I'm talking about. So we're bringing her in because we have a vacant teacher, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
correct, we
Or
haven't
one
been
of
able
the
to fill that
grades
teacher
available.
position.
So we're paying her that much money for a teacher position? To fill in for a teacher?
It's about 6,000, I think, a
Mhm.
month.
It was more than that.
That's with benefits, correct?
No, but
No.
No, the
benefits.
benefits are contracted,
That would be like 70.
that's,
You don't get.
But you guys wanted to cut a teacher, so that blows my mind.
it's a special education teacher, not a classroom teacher, she's filling in for.
Alright, so you're saying we had a special education teacher that,
It's
we had a
vacant.
vacant
It's
spot.
currently vacant,
Correct.
yes.
So we're still gonna continue to pay that position? I mean, we're still gonna continue to do these out,
Until
We're trying to
until we
find
fill that vacancy,
people.
yes.
But that money is already there because if we have that space
We're
available for
saving
that
on
person.
the
right?
salary account. for that.
well, I guess my only point is that when we get the accounts payable, I hope everybody's opening them up and actually looking at them. And I really think that we should see them before we sign off on them, that we should look at them before we sign off on them. Because, for example, there was another student that we just reimbursed for travel that, in addition to the one that I asked you about. And I don't understand why, if they're not McKinney-Vento Act and they're not special education and we can't provide services, why we're reimbursing parents to bring their children to school when I know for a fact that, I don't know about you guys, but I wouldn't, when I approve the budget, I'm not thinking that I'm okay with that. If there's an issue on the bus where a kid is kicked off, or there's an issue where there's a dispute between what's going on a bus, we're reimbursing parents to bring their kids to school?
So, Kelly, you spoke with me about a very specific circumstance.
That one.
I'm not clear what you're talking about in this particular case.
There was another one, so
We have
that-
an obligation under special education.
This person was in
if
special
students-
education.
Well, I'm explaining the two pieces that I know. We provide reimbursement under McKinney-Vento, and
Yeah.
we provide reimbursement under special education. And beyond that, I've not authorized any other reimbursements to parents for transporting their children.
So the only.
It was the one that you and I spoke about, and there
Correct.
was an additional one.
But you need
I'm telling you what
to,
I
so if
know.
you have
So if
questions,
you have
please
questions,
email
reach
us. But otherwise, it's, I mean, by statute, the school board is required to review and approve those manifests. And unless you have a question, to hold it up in some way, we need to process that.
I'm not signing off on something that I don't agree with.
Then you need to ask.
Right, and if I don't agree with it, I don't have to sign off on
But
it.
it's already in the budget.
But like, so
Right, it's in the
special,
budget, but the specific things
From
I'm talking
last
about,
year.
and I'm not agreeing to.
But
we're
you don't-
required to provide those
Right, but I'm
special
not putting a
education
signature on something,
services.
Christina, that I don't agree to. I'm sorry, I'm not doing that.
Alright, so again, I think the point would be if you have specific questions or concerns, then please reach out to us, because it's difficult for us to respond in a meeting with no prior knowledge of what the issues and concerns are, and we're concerned about our credit ratings with our vendors following through on services if we don't pay our bills in a timely manner.
Is there any other motions for the budget? Okay, I'm gonna make a motion to approve the budget with the added in teacher for whatever that total that you, $18,135,293, I believe, that's what. So I'm gonna make a motion to approve that budget as stated with the addition of the classroom teacher back into the budget.
I'll second.
All in favor?
No.
No. So 3 yeses, 2 noes.
Alright, so,
Let's power through this.
warrant articles. So we have, 2 proposed warrant articles, and then we have a citizens petition warrant article. The first warrant article is the roof replacement article that is part of our capital improvement plan. We work with a roofing consultant to determine the condition of our roofs, and then plan for replacement based upon need. This is for obvious reasons. With roofs, we want to avoid any roof failure, water penetration, or unnecessary repairs and damage. The estimated cost of the roof replacement is $450,000.
Alright, I'm
Questions?
just sending them home, I know they should be back here bright and early tomorrow, and we can address the warrant article.
Thank you.
Happy birthday,
What?
Happy birthday.
It's your birthday, Colleen! Happy birthday! I got to spend it with you guys.
I apologize.
So you love that. Sorry.
Have a good night.
Okay.
Bye, Colleen, thank you. Okay. So do we make a motion on approving that warrant article?
Yep.
Okay, so I will make a motion to approve the roof replacement warrant article for $450,000 to go on the ballot.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
No, we can't afford it.
This is to go on the warrant article for
It's
the-
just for the town to be able to vote
taxpayers.
on whether they want it or not.
The roof replacement, I just moved ahead to the Seabrook, to the
Yeah.
Seabrook.
Okay, so 4 yes.
Alright, and the last warrant article for the citizens petition is the CESPA collective bargaining agreement. Year 1 is $99,426, year 2 is $96,005, year 3 is $95,405, and year 4 is $87,135. So I think you're all well aware of how important our educational associates are, what a vital role they play on a daily basis in our classrooms with both our general education and special education students. Currently, we are not competitive, both from a compensation or benefits perspective to surrounding school districts and from local businesses. These are employees that are currently getting paid between $15 an hour and $19 an hour. They receive a single person, low cost health insurance plan. And simply put, it's very difficult to both hire and to retain these employees. We're seeing about a 40% turnover rate. That causes huge issues with school operations, and particularly when looking at our special education departments, but also in the general education department, because oftentimes when we hire in the general education side, they get pulled over to special education if there's any vacancies, because special education we're required to provide those services. So they get moved from the general ed classrooms into the special ed classrooms. This is with CBAs, they're very difficult to pass because they need to pass in each school district within SAU 21. So if it fails on any ballot, it fails across the board. And should it fail, these employees, not only would they not receive the increases in the CBA, but they would also they would receive nothing. So they'd receive no cost of living adjustment, no step, no added benefits. So embedded in this CBA is a increase of $2 an hour in years 1 and 2, and $1 an hour in years 3 and 4. It also provides for a 2-person health insurance plan in years 3 and a family health insurance plan in year 4. So this, we hope that this, and we were confident that should this pass, this will help us a great deal when looking at attracting high quality educational associates and then keeping them here at Seabrook. Any questions in regard to this warrant article?
Basically, if it doesn't pass, we have potential to lose even more EAs and not be able to hire even more EAs than we already.
You're gonna lose the RBTs anyway.
I make a motion to add the child benefit services to the warrant article.
No.
No,
Not that one. Not that one.
We
CESPA, that's the one. I
Okay.
rescind that last motion and I make a new motion to add the CESPA collective bargaining agreement to the warrant articles.
One second.
I don't have
All
brain
in
cell.
favor?
Aye.
I do not have a brain cell left.
Sorry, what's that?
All of us.
Yeah.
Unanimous?
Unanimous.
All right, and the final warrant article is a citizens petition. This is the Child Benefit Services citizens petition article submitted by Sacred Heart School. That's a Catholic school located in Hampton, in the amount of $16,762. That's for Seabrook residents to fund the purchase of technology supplies and books of 15 Seabrook students who attend Sacred Heart.
I'll make a motion to approve that because a lot of the kids are going there because they're unhappy with the education here, so they're not sending them there because they want to. So I make a motion to approve it.
Is there a second?
Wow, you guys are really thinking.
I'm not giving any
It's not
money,
a
I'm not giving any money to
No, I know.
outside
It's like
schools.
not-
They had to send their kids there because their kids are not getting the education here. It's different, they're pulling them out of here. They started off here and they're not happy here. If they started off there, I can see that. But they're leaving here because they're unhappy here. They're actually putting their children first. Unlike us, we're keeping our kids in here thinking that we can make a change, and clearly we can't make a change here. So you don't have to second it, but I am gonna approve it because there's parents that have taken their kids out of here because they're desperately scared to death. Their kids aren't gonna get an education. It's not like it used to be.
This is just a warrant article, though, right?
It's for Seabrook to fund
It goes on
Children
regardless,
that-
but it just says
It's-
whether we
Approve it or not.
agree with it or not, but even regardless of whether we agree or
Right,
whether we
it goes
don't,
on there, okay.
everybody has the
Yeah, I
option
think
of
I remember.
voting.
So there does need to be a recommendation to either approve it or not to, so they,
Right, cause they put the blurb underneath that says.
they'll
Yeah, it
say,
just says like not recommended or whatever.
or recommend, does not recommend the warrant article or does, so there does need to be some, motion and vote on this.
I make a motion that the board does not recommend providing the child
Yeah, we
benefit
need a motion to
services to.
Yeah, sure, you
Yeah,
need a motion to
definitely.
approve, so.
But there was no second,
There's no sense.
so Patrick is making a new motion to not recommend the article, correct?
I'll second that motion.
I feel like we need to keep as much money as we can for our kids that are here right now, and that's $16,000,
It's something else.
yeah. Why give it out to somewhere else?
Because they don't wanna keep their kids here.
But this is this is every year, it's the same thing,
And we,
it's
I
not
mean,
just this year, this is always on here.
we're like literally trying to do whatever we can to make this school better, so. we're Getting all that.
So we have a second on the motion.
That was
All
my,
in
I
favor?
second.
Aye.
4 yes, 1 no. Okay, motion to
Go ahead,
adjourn.
second.
Yeah, Jen, would you like to?
Go for it, you got it, I'm done.
I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Matt, thank you for.
So Friday's
Oh,
canceled.